The very instant I jolted awake, I discovered a heavy gold chain tightly shackled around my left wrist. Even worse, the opposite end was bolted to my ultimate arch nemesis, who also happened to be my childhood sweetheart Sie Yakian. Without a single moment of hesitation, I forcefully yanked the woman upward. You absolute blockhead. What on earth do you think you're doing? How dare you sneak your way into my bed? Yet there wasn't a single trace of drowsiness on Sie Yakian's face. In fact, she didn't even seem remotely surprised. She merely curled her crimson lips into a subtle smirk, staring back at me with a face full of playful amusement. I hoisted my left wrist high into the air. What is the absolute meaning of this? Unshackle me this instant. I aggressively thrust the golden chain right in front of her eyes. Instantly, Jie Yakian's demeanor flipped into pure chaotic agitation. You're scheming to crawl back to that girl Yuan Tiantian again, aren't you? Don't you dare even dream about it. You won't see her face again for the rest of your miserable life. I scratched my head in utter confusion and asked Yuan, who exactly is this Tiantian? Who the hell is she, and why on earth would I go looking for her? This unexpected response completely stunned Xie Yaqian into silence. However, her shock lasted for merely a single second. Her mind instantly raced back to my notorious past behavior, seeing that she refused to offer a single answer. I began scanning the surrounding environment on my own. It was a massive, sprawling bedroom, with the kind of lavish interior design that practically screamed astronomical wealth. Xie Yaqian assumed I was about to ignite another one of my psychotic episodes, so she scoffed at me mockingly. What are you plotting now? Planning to smash another vase over my skull, or are you trying to? Completely ignoring her toxic outbursts, I finished a rapid survey of our immediate surroundings, as a barrage of questions flooded my brain. Where the hell are we? Is this your place? Because I distinctly remember your house looking nothing like this. Furthermore, how did I even end up in this room? Why am I literally chained to you? And why on earth are we sleeping in the exact same bed? What kind of messed up trap did you spring on me? By the way, this gold chain is just a cheap alloy, right? There's no way this is actual solid gold, correct? Are you seriously claiming you don't recognize this place? You secretly purchased this luxury estate entirely behind my back, keeping it hidden away from me. What exactly is your game here? Suddenly, an incredibly bizarre phenomenon caught my attention. A glowing row of semi-transparent text materialized out of thin air. Here it comes, it's happening again too. The male lead is faking amnesia again just to manipulate his villainous wife. Honestly, I feel so incredibly bad for President Xi right now. Let's see how long he can keep up this pathetic act this time. I bet my life savings he won't last a single day. The female lead is definitely already seeing right through his lies. This is literally his third time faking it. There's no way she's falling for this garbage again. By the way, is Yuan Tiantian even making an appearance today? Nope, 0 stars, absolute trash. What does he even see in that generic heroine anyway? Can we please show some appreciation for our gorgeous villainous wife instead? The male lead, the heroine, the villainous wife, I recognize every single one of these words. Yet seeing them strung together like this sends a violent chill straight down my spine. This absolute absurdity? Did I literally get isekai'd into a novel? Wait, that makes 0 sense. I am definitely me, and the woman sitting right in front of me is my lifelong rival. The exact same Jie Yaqian who has been a massive thorn in my side since childhood. Are you honestly claiming you have 0 memory of Yuan Tiantian? Then what exactly do you still remember? I completely ignored her interrogation. Wait, am I actually married? And you are supposedly my wife. How on earth is that even scientifically possible? Listen to me closely, Chao Chen. If this is another one of your pathetic schemes to force a divorce, it is absolutely never happening. I will never let you run away to be with that girl Yuan Tiantian, even if I end up 6 feet under. You can completely forget about ever being with her. I haven't even hit my 20th birthday yet, so how could I possibly be married? This marriage certificate is a total counterfeit. This entire union is completely illegal. How old do you honestly think you are right now? I'm 19, obviously. Xie Yaqian's pupils dilated in absolute shock, and her heart skipped a violent beat. But she quickly forced herself to calm down. Chao Chen, I am completely done wasting my precious breath on you. Cut the theatrical nonsense. How many times are you going to recycle this exact same amnesia trope? Even if you're not bored to death by it, I am sick and tired of wasting my time. Stop desperately chasing after Yuan Tiantian. She doesn't give a single damn about you. Amnesia, I didn't lose my freaking memory. Just yesterday, I dominated the 800-meter race at the university sports meet, and I snagged first place easily. I severely sprained my ankle while I was bragging about it right in front of your face. Though looking at this current setup right now, I guess I am missing a few details. The more Xie Yaqian listened, the more her expression completely darkened. Her sharp gaze locked onto me like a predator tracking prey. Chen. It was precisely right after that event that he crossed paths with Yuan Tiantian. If Chen is legitimately suffering from severe amnesia, then it makes total sense that he genuinely doesn't recognize Yuan Tiantian. You are absolutely not 19 years old right now. You are currently 26. and we have been officially married for 4 whole years. 4 years, well, a total of 4 grueling years. There is zero chance I'm buying that I am explicitly 19 years old. Besides, why on earth would I ever tie the knot with a girl like you? You literally bragged in the past that even if every single man on earth went extinct, you wouldn't feel a shred of romantic attraction toward me. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt and play along with this story for today. But if I discover that you're running another pathetic scam on me, the next trap won't just involve binding you with a simple chain. Staring intently at the metal links, I curiously questioned Jie Yakian. Is this chain actually solid gold or is it just some cheap alloy? It's the real deal, but it's 18 karat gold. The structural hardness is a bit on the lower side. Then it is literally just an alloy compound. Ugh, you totally got my hopes up for absolutely nothing. Xie Yaqian's icy tone suddenly softened into something noticeably warmer. If there's anything your heart desires, just let me know. I'll buy it for you instantly. Wait, did you undergo some radical personality transplant? Squeezing even a tiny bit of allowance cash out of your tight fist in the past was an absolute nightmare. You used to claim that every dime of your wealth belongs strictly to your future husband. Yet now you're suddenly acting like a massive spendthrift. Well, you are officially my husband right now. Seen it right now. How in the world did I end up marrying you of all people? Did you lose your absolute mind or did I totally lose mine? You aren't pulling some elaborate prank on me, right? Xie Yaqian snatched our marriage certificates from the nightstand and aggressively tossed them into my lap. They were completely authentic, bearing the official embossed government seal. I stared closely at the registration date stamped on the document. We tied the knot at age 22, the exact same year we graduated from university. As the morning sunlight filtered through the massive floor-to-ceiling windows, Xie Yaqian sat gracefully inside the dining room, her sharp eyes subtly drifting over to scan my every move. Nanny Wang spoke up with utmost courtesy, young master. Your breakfast has been fully prepared. I locked my gaze onto the feast spread across the table, and my eyes instantly lit up with pure excitement. Xie Yaqian quietly observed my every reaction without uttering a single word. Shoveling food into my face, I yelled over toward the kitchen, Nanny Wang. Your culinary skills are absolutely legendary. Nanny Wang poked her head out from the kitchen doorway. As long as you're enjoying it, young master, that's all that matters. If you love it, please eat as much as your heart desires. I am completely obsessed with this. I cheered aggressively, stuffing another pan-fried dumpling straight into my mouth. An authentic, pure smile of bliss on Ah Chen's face. How many agonizing years has it been since I last witnessed him look this happy? But what if this entire display is just a total fabrication? In the mere blink of an eye. All of that warmth, which had almost overflowed from her, was instantly and ruthlessly encased in a thick layer of suffocating frost. What if Ah Chen is only acting like this to lower my psychological defenses, solely to abandon me once again and sprint back into the arms of Yuan Tiantian? I will grant Ah Chen a temporary window of opportunity. I will patiently bide my time, intently analyzing his every move before making my absolute final judgment. This dark, toxic thought coiled itself tightly like a venomous viper, straight around Xie Yaqian's fragile heart. She slowly placed her coffee cup back down. If Ah Chen is scheming to deceive me once more, that custom-engineered gold cage hidden deep within my private basement has been desperately missing its true occupant for far too long. I would not mind in the slightest forcing Ah Chen to move right back inside it. I abruptly spoke up, breaking the tense silence. Hey Xie Yaqian, how come I have zero recollection of your family being this wildly affluent in the past? This luxury estate must have cost an absolute fortune, right? Did you pull in all this revenue by yourself? Just how massive is the net worth you've managed to build over these past few years? The old Ah Chen would never deign to ask a single question regarding my financial assets. He completely refused to care about anything relating to my personal life. Ah Chen's entire mind was constantly hyperfixated on Yuan Tiantian. He only had eyes for Yuan Tiantian, desperately doing everything in his power just to please Yuan Tiantian. Xie Yaqian took a long deep breath and nonchalantly replied it wasn't expensive at all. It only cost a mere $300 million or so. As for my current net worth, I easily have a few tens of billions to my name. The exact moment the words 300 million left her mouth, my eyes instantly dilated to the absolute size of saucers. And upon hearing that, she possessed a staggering tens of billions. My eyeballs were practically ready to pop straight out of their sockets. This is a completely absurd, mind-boggling level of wealth. I immediately set my chopsticks down and stared at her with utmost seriousness. You explicitly stated that the two of us are legally wedded spouses right now, correct? Are you already scheming to liquidate and divide our marital assets? If your net worth is legally half mine, that implies I'm basically a billionaire too. Should I strip my clothes off then? Right this second. That feels a bit inappropriate, doesn't it? How about we head back to the master bedroom first? At the end of the day, since Xie Yaqian and I are already officially married anyway, even if I strip completely naked for her, what's the absolute worst that could happen? It's not like I'm the one losing out on this deal. My face radiated a brilliantly ecstatic grin, completely devoid of even a single shred of malicious intent or hidden agendas. staring at my face, which was completely flushed with pure unfiltered joy. Xie Yaqian couldn't help but pinch the bridge of her nose in absolute bewilderment. Could it be that he has legitimately lost his memory this time? Because no matter how flawlessly the infatuated Ah Chen tried to fake an act, he could never completely mask his deep underlying disgust toward me. I absolutely still need to closely monitor and evaluate Ah Chen. Don't forget, we have a legally binding prenuptial agreement, according to the terms of that prenup, if we ever file for divorce. You will walk away with absolutely nothing, completely empty-handed. My ecstatic expression instantly collapsed into a look of absolute despair, shattered into a million pieces. You actually double-crossed and guarded against me. Xie Yaqian, I never in a million years imagined you were such a cold-blooded calculator. I am so incredibly disappointed in you right now. When we officially tied the knot, you were actually the one who aggressively demanded to sign it. I demanded it. Why on earth would I do that? Was I completely brain dead or something? Faking some pathetic moral high ground and completely forfeiting billions of dollars. Because the Ah Chen of that time never harbored any genuine desire to be united with me in marriage. Back then, Ah Chen was merely devastated and completely heartbroken by Yuan Tiantian, which was the only reason he reluctantly agreed to walk down the aisle with me. Even that prenuptial agreement was something Ah Chen absolutely insisted on executing. He repeatedly reinforced the boundary that we were strictly a fake married couple. How exactly did the two of us even end up getting married? And who in the absolute hell is this Yuan Tiantian girl anyway? I relentlessly pressed her for answers. And the exact moment that query escaped my lips, my eyes naturally drifted right back to that bizarre floating live chat barrage. Ah Chen is the ultimate husband material. Ugh, Yuan Tiantian is his rightful wife, you guys. Please, his legitimate legal wife is literally Xie Yaqian. And it's 100% government sanctioned and official. President Xie and hubby Ah Chen are absolutely a match made in heaven. I am literally ready to throw hands with all of you, who are desperately trying to force the second female lead into the main spot. That cheating toxic girl doesn't deserve to be the heroine at all. Just wait until the male lead regains his memories. He will definitely sprint right back to the heroine's side. You clowns need to stop trying to tear down the canon CP, okay? Piecing together the chaotic clues from these floating texts, I slowly began to realize that myself, Xie Yaqian, and this mysterious entity named Yuan Tiantian were caught in a cliché romance novel dynamic consisting of the generic male lead, the villainous second female lead, and the cheating main heroine. But what on earth does this girl even look like? To think she actually possessed the power to make me willingly commit suicide for her. Xie Yaqian sat across from me, hesitating for what felt like an eternity. Before finally opening her mouth, Yuan Tiantian was your absolute first love. And for her sake, you constantly spun a web of deception around me. Endless manipulations, constant gaslighting, and absolute lies. So that's the real reason I insisted on signing a prenuptial agreement. I was literally a monumental brain-dead blockhead. Xie Yaqian, witnessing this pathetic display of mine, softly asked Ah Chen, "You jolted awake this morning claiming complete memory loss, and now you've resorted to aggressively insulting yourself. Do I need to summon our private family physician to check on you?" I immediately shook my head in refusal. No, there's absolutely no need. I feel completely fine. Xie Yaqian cataloged my bizarre erratic behavior with utmost precision. This is beyond bizarre. Ah Chen's actions and reactions today are fundamentally unnatural. Could it be that Ah Chen has secretly re-established contact with Yuan Tiantian behind my back? Did Yuan Tiantian feed Ah Chen another web of toxic lies? This sudden bout of severe amnesia? Is it actually nothing more than a masterfully orchestrated performance, solely engineered to coerce me into dropping my psychological guard? Yet everything about his current demeanor feels like a total regression to the past. Back to the pure era before Ah Chen ever crossed paths with Yuan Tiantian. Xie Yaqian's gaze gradually cooled into a chilling, expressionless stare, as the suffocating doubts rooted deep within her soul began to coil and grow like wild ivy. The very moment Xie Yaqian finished consuming her breakfast, she recalled the massive mountain of corporate operations awaiting her at the office, as she smoothly prepared to step out to the front door. I, who was still actively working on my meal, spotted Xie Yaqian heading for the exit, and immediately scrambled to follow right behind her. I casually questioned, "Where exactly are you off to?" "To the office," I nodded understandingly and blurted, I completely forgot." "Well, what about me? Where exactly is my workplace?" "You are explicitly forbidden from leaving this house." I tilted my head back, looking at her in complete disbelief. "And why on earth is that? Are you still under the impression that I'm trying to pull a fast one on you? Your historical track record with me offers absolutely zero credibility. But I legitimately possess zero recollection of anything from these past 6 years. I don't even remember that girl named Yuan, whatever her name is. Or whether she's round or flat, I have no clue who she even is. What could I possibly even plot to do? Since you claim to have forgotten everything, then you will stay comfortably and obediently confined inside this mansion. You are absolutely not permitted to step foot outside. Don't even dream about orchestrating an escape. The perimeter is heavily fortified with professional security personnel. Xie Yaqian's eyes were completely flooded with deep suspicion as she refused to hand over my phone. Look, I've already fully consented to being placed under house arrest here. But you at least have to provide me with some basic form of entertainment, right? I will have my staff deliver a brand new device directly to you in a few moments. I flashed a bright grin and confidently threw her an okay hand gesture. The very millisecond Xie Yaqian crossed the threshold of the front door, she coldly commanded the towering security detail keep your eyes glued to him. The young master is strictly prohibited from stepping out of this perimeter under any circumstances. And above all else, do not permit him to interact with a single soul. Most notably that girl Yuan Tiantian. Understood, President Xi, also President Xi. There is an exceptionally critical corporate bidding war scheduled for tonight. It is a major commercial auction involving the ZA Corporation, the Yuan Corporation, and an array of other powerhouse conglomerates vying for the contract. Xie Yaqian's personal secretary walked closely by her side, meticulously briefing her on the dense itinerary for today's corporate operations. The assistant had already caught wind of my erratic stunt from early this morning, and her heart couldn't help but fill with intense anxiety. Every single time the young master pulls one of these chaotic, dramatic stunts, it is always a calculated move to help the Yuan Corporation hijack our major projects, even though the Yuan Corporation faces rivals other than the ZA Corporation. The ZA Corporation remains their absolute fiercest and most formidable adversary. The assistant had already caught wind of my erratic stunt from early this morning, and her heart couldn't help but fill with intense anxiety. If they can successfully neutralize the ZA Corporation's competitive edge, absolutely no one left on the field will have the leverage to withstand the UN Corporation. If you have something on your mind, spit it out. President Xi, do you think the young master could be utterly faking this amnesia? What if it's purely a trap to get you to lower your strategic defenses, only to pull off an absolute catastrophe right when the gala begins? The young master has already maliciously sabotaged numerous high-stakes deals belonging to the ZA Corporation in the past, yet President Xi endlessly spoils and coddles the young master to an absolute fault, even at the cost of bleeding astronomical amounts of corporate revenue. And facing massive backlash from the company board members, she strictly refuses to divorce him. The young master is completely blind and utterly brain dead. He has such a magnificent top-tier wife right in front of him, yet he ignores her, just to desperately simp for a toxic cheating gold digger. Seriously, my heart bleeds for President Xi. She deserves so much better. If such a worst-case scenario does materialize tonight, it is your fundamental duty to have prepared airtight contingency protocols well in advance, regardless of whatever chaotic variables unfold. We are absolutely locking down and conquering this specific contract tonight. I will not tolerate any erratic interference from the young master, throwing you off your game or disrupting your professional execution. You are completely right, President Xi. Meanwhile, back at the massive mansion, having eaten and drunk my absolute fill, I collapsed directly back onto the master bed. Say what you want, but I have to admit, this bed is absolutely colossal. The sheets are woven from the finest ultra-luxurious silk, feeling incredibly soft and remarkably smooth against the skin. The custom mattress is also exceptionally plush, featuring a high-tech smart system that lets you adjust it to your exact liking. Honestly, I feel absolutely zero desire to even step foot into the living room anymore. Back in the day, the Chow and Xie families were merely comfortably upper middle class, meaning we could easily afford this type of high-end furniture. But that definitely did not extend to owning a sprawling multi-million-dollar estate like this. To this very second, I still haven't fully figured out how on earth that girl Xie Yaqian managed to secure such massive success. How can a single human being be so insanely, impossibly driven? I glanced back up to see the live chat stream rolling across the air in real time, but it was mostly filled with completely irrelevant gossip and absolute nonsense, offering zero substantial or practical clues about my reality. So I couldn't be bothered to look anymore. I hadn't even been scrolling for long, when a brand new notification suddenly popped up on my phone. Ah Chen, tonight's corporate deal is an absolutely massive project for us. You must do whatever it takes to thoroughly distract Xie Yaqian for me. The absolute second I crush the CA Corporation, the two of us will finally get married. Just as I was left completely bewildered, I caught sight of the live chat hovering mid-air. Wow, the heroine seriously has the audacity to gaslight the male lead again. The male lead is definitely going to fall for it. He's such a simp. He's so utterly obsessed with the heroine, but wait, it's hard to tell now. The male lead is suffering from total amnesia right now. So who's to say he even remembers this toxic girl is the heroine? His memory loss hasn't even been 100% confirmed yet. What if he's just putting on a massive act to manipulate the second female lead? Tonight's corporate deal is absolutely massive. Whichever company locks it down will completely leave the other in the dust. Please, I beg the male lead to stop pulling chaotic stunts for once. At this point, the pieces of the puzzle finally clicked together in my head. So the person spamming my inbox right now, is none other than that toxic cheating girl, Yuen, whatever her name is. I casually rolled over onto my side and immediately went right back to browsing my phone. After another 10 agonizing minutes flew by, and my chat remained completely radio silent without a single response. Yuan Tiantian finally sensed that something was terribly off. She immediately began spamming sweet talk to manipulate me into doing her dirty work. Plot twist, the scammer got scammed, hey. He literally blocked her number, LMFAO. Yuan Tiantian never in a million years anticipated that I would aggressively block her account. How on earth did I end up on his blocked list? Is it because I've been completely freezing him out and ignoring him lately? Yuan Tiantian desperately fired off a flurry of messages through an alternate channel, drenching the text in absolute sweet talk and manipulation. The wall of text basically claimed that her intimate interactions with all those other wealthy men were completely fake, insisting they were strictly professional corporate alliances. She claimed that the only person her heart truly beats for is me, and that she's only hustling for billions just to marry me. She even swore that securing this specific contract was entirely driven by her desire to give me a much more luxurious life in the future. I casually fired back a blunt, savage reply, "Wire me $5 million right now, so I can test your financial strength." When Tiantian's attitude instantly flipped as she snapped, "Ah Chen, you've completely changed. You used to be so incredibly pure and never cared about materialistic wealth. You used to be so incredibly innocent, untainted, beautiful, and sweet. Untainted like pure sparkling winter snow. Have you simply been cooped up with Xie Yaqian for far too long? You've been completely corrupted by her toxic corporate influence. You need to sever ties and get as far away from her as possible. Everything I'm grinding for right now is explicitly for our romantic future. Why on earth are you refusing to lend me a hand? Can't you show an ounce of compassion and understand where I'm coming from?" I knitted my brows tightly together, completely spiraling into a deep state of self-doubt. I couldn't help but mutter quietly under my breath. Was I seriously genuinely obsessed with this kind of textbook gaslighting manipulator? Am I actually experiencing some dimensional isekai transmigration? Or did I totally lose my mind? But no matter how you spin the narrative, there is absolutely zero universe where I fall for a toxic narcissistic girl like this. Utterly exhausted from listening to this clown's exhausting logic, I directly threw her mobile number straight onto my blacklisted contacts as well. Turning away, I casually went right back to enjoying my peace and scrolling through my phone. Meanwhile, en route to the high-stakes corporate bidding venue, the head housekeeper of the Xie estate, Nanny Wang, frantically dialed Xie Yaqian's private line. "Hello, Nanny Wang." Xie Yaqian didn't even have a split second to breathe, or question the urgent reason behind this sudden phone call before. "My lady, the young master has been violently throwing up all over the place. He's screaming about severe abdominal agony. The excruciating pain is so intense that he's literally rolling around on the floor crying. Where the hell is our private family physician? I summoned the medical team just a moment ago. They should arrive momentarily." The young master desperately screamed to call an emergency ambulance, but the security detail physically blocked it. They insisted they must secure your explicit personal authorization first. Tell those complete and utter morons to dial 911 this exact microsecond. If even a single hair on the young master's head is permanently harmed, every last one of them can pack their bags and consider themselves fired. They immediately frantically dialed the emergency services rescue line, absolutely petrified of wasting even a single millisecond more. Xie Yaqian slammed her phone shut with an intensely pale face and sharply commanded the chauffeur to pull a sharp U-turn back to the mansion. "But President Xi, our multi-billion-dollar commercial auction is scheduled to kick off any minute now." Yet the young master conveniently developed severe abdominal pain at this exact second. Seated in the front passenger seat, her personal secretary Juju urgently pointed out the pattern. "I understand exactly what you're trying to imply, but inside my world, Ah Chen will always and forever be the absolute #1 priority. Even if every single emergency is just a classic boy who cried wolf scam to manipulate me, I will still choose to believe him blindly the very next time. Ah Chen can throw a million tantrums and deceive me countless times, but I cannot afford to turn my back on him even once. I have never been someone blessed with good fortune or luck. I absolutely cannot lose Ah Chen, and I possess zero psychological capacity to survive the agonizing torment of losing him." Juzu parted her lips, desperately desiring to argue her corporate point further, but ultimately managed nothing more than a submissive understood, the sleek obsidian Rolls-Royce. At the final critical intersection, right before entering the massive corporate bidding war arena, executed a sharp aggressive U-turn across the asphalt, and tore back toward the sprawling Xie family estate at breakneck speed. Xie Yaqian exhaled a heavy trembling breath. "It's not that I haven't considered that this might be yet another masterfully orchestrated artificial crisis. The timing of this sudden medical emergency is far too perfect, far too calculated. The obvious motive is to violently derail my attendance at this high-stakes auction, but I simply have zero choice in the matter. The stakes are far too high and I absolutely cannot afford to gamble with his life. I am absolutely terrified to take that risk, even if this toxic boy who cried wolf narrative plays out 100 times over. I will still upon the 101st time. Sprint toward Ah-chen without a single shred of hesitation. Right at that moment, her phone vibrated violently in her palm. It was an urgent update from Nanny Wang. The paramedics have arrived. They are currently rushing the young master straight to the emergency room. Juzu's fingers flew across her digital tablet at lightning speed, desperately trying to negotiate a delay for the corporate bidding operations. Meanwhile, Xie Yaqian's hyperfixated gaze remained glued out the window, tracking the passing streets. The luxury vehicle violently screeched to a halt right before the hospital's emergency trauma wing. Xie Yaqian unleashed an absolute burst of speed, storming out the door the exact millisecond the tires stopped rotating. Right outside the intense aura of the emergency room doors, Nanny Wang, along with several elite security guards, were pacing around in a state of sheer panic. The moment Nanny Wang spotted her approaching, she cried out, "My lady." Xie Yaqian's voice carried a distinct, terrifying tremor as she demanded, "Where's my husband?" "He's locked inside. The medical team is currently conducting emergency diagnostics." Xie Yaqian marched directly up to the threshold of the trauma bay, peer-straining through the small glass window embedded in the door, only able to discern a chaotic blur of medical silhouettes shifting frantically inside. She clenched her fists until her knuckles turned stark white, forcing her racing mind to stay grounded. Spinning around, her icy gaze locked onto the guards standing rigidly with slumped shoulders. "Which one of you brainless idiots physically blocked the emergency ambulance from being summoned?" Her tone was not raised to a scream, yet it resonated with a bone-chilling coldness that felt entirely laced with pure Arctic frost. A towering, heavily built security guard forced himself to swallow his fear and reluctantly took a tense step forward. "Madame, based on your previous directives, we were explicitly instructed that if the young master attempted to utilize any emergency channels or requested transport to exit the perimeter, we were required to first. What I demand from you useless garbage is the absolute preservation of his life and health, not to force him to endure agonizing physical torment while pinned to the floor." Xie Yaqian viciously cut him off mid-sentence, her eyes completely overflowing with an intensely suppressed volcanic fury. If a fatal tragedy had actually occurred to him today, which one of your pathetic lives could possibly pay that debt? The security detail dropped their heads in complete silence, utterly paralyzed as the intense, suffocating aura wrapped around them, shivered like cicadas in the dead of winter, fearing to utter a single syllable of defense. Right at that tense moment, the heavy door of the emergency room swung open, and the lead attending physician calmly stepped out into the corridor. Xie Yaqian instantly bolted forward to intercept him. "Doctor, how is my husband? Is he going to be okay?" "It is a severe case of acute gastroenteritis. The patient's physical frame is exceptionally frail and thin, suggesting his standard daily caloric intake is quite minimal." This time, he abruptly shock-loaded his system by consuming an immense volume of food all at once, placing an absolutely overwhelming burden on his stomach wall, which directly triggered violent gastrointestinal spasms and severe vomiting. "We have already administered intensive intravenous medication, so the excruciating pain has subsided, and he is currently under stable observation while on an IV drip. There is no permanent structural damage or life-threatening peril. You can breathe easy." Her heavily suffocated heart finally plummeted back to reality. An overwhelming wave of pure physical exhaustion and profound weakness immediately washed over her, yet it was completely eclipsed by an immense sense of sheer relief. Xie Yaqian let out a long, deeply drawn-out sigh. "Thank you so much, doctor. Am I legally permitted to go inside and sit with him right now?" "You may, but the patient currently requires absolute, uninterrupted rest. Please maintain total silence inside the room." Xie Yaqian nodded understandingly with a solemn expression, softly applying pressure to the door handle as she stepped inside the sterile space. Lying on the elevated hospital bed, my eyes were tightly shut, my complexion still remaining incredibly pale and drained of color. An intravenous needle was deeply embedded into the back of my hand, as the clear, crystal-like liquid medication slowly and rhythmically dripped down the plastic line drop by drop, detecting the faint, cautious sound of incoming footsteps. My eyelashes fluttered weakly in response, before I slowly forced my heavy eyelids open. The absolute second my gaze locked onto her silhouette, an incredibly swift, profoundly intricate kaleidoscope of emotions flashed across my eyes, resembling pure shock mixed with something entirely undefinable, before being instantly masked by a dense layer of overwhelming physical exhaustion. "Weren't you supposed to be attending an exceptionally critical corporate auction right now?" My voice sounded painfully raspy and gravelly. An extremely subtle, almost imperceptible glint of sharp calculation ignited deep within Xie Yaqian's eyes, her tone melting into an incredibly gentle, honeyed murmur. "How exactly did you find out about that?" "Ooh, the second female lead is already getting highly suspicious. She's totally guessing the male lead might have pulled a fake stunt, solely to sabotage her and drag her away from that high-stakes bidding war. But our Queen Z made airtight contingency plans, so even if she's absent, the elite corporate sharks working under her are definitely not helpless rookies." LMAO, the male lead sheds a single tear, and the second female lead immediately comes running back like an absolute loyal dog. I low-key support the second female lead, putting the male lead on total house arrest give us that toxic content. Honestly, I had fully intended to come completely clean and lay all the facts out to Yakian anyway. After all, within the absolute limits of my current memories, Yakian is the only familiar anchor I have left in this world. My new phone intercepted a highly suspicious text message earlier today, explicitly demanding that I execute a plan to distract you, mattering something about some wildly critical corporate auction or whatever. Yakian, you absolutely must believe my words right now. I am legitimately suffering from total amnesia, even if you and I are completely at odds or constantly locking horns. There is zero universe where I actively conspire with an outsider to stab you in the back. And don't even get me started on the fact that I don't even recognize that girl right now. Because even if I did know her down to a T, I would still never maliciously sabotage your hard-earned professional legacy like that. Yakian found herself deeply moved by the raw sincerity of my speech. If only things could permanently remain pure and perfect like this forever. Yakian cautiously reached out her hand to retrieve my mobile device to inspect the data. Historically, I would have broken out into an absolute panic over such an invasion of privacy. Yet this time, I casually scooped up my smartphone, smoothly bypassed the lock screen and handed it directly into her palm. And then, she immediately clocked the incoming barrage of text from Yuan Tiantian begging for a truce, along with a toxic tidal wave of manipulative, sugar-coated sweet talk. Her gaze instantly plummeted back into a dark, suffocating abyss of suspicion. After scanning the message, it turned out exactly as I had predicted. I had indeed refused to take the bait, and my sudden rush to the emergency room was nothing more than a bizarre stroke of pure unadulterated cosmic coincidence. I mean, I simply noticed that my 26-year-old physical frame was ridiculously malnourished and thin, right? So I merely intended to feast like a king, to load up on some heavy nutrients and fix my health. But who on earth could have predicted that my current adult anatomy would be as fragile as a paper doll? It had been an agonizingly long time since Yakian last heard me, rambling and venting to her with such unhinged, unfiltered vulnerability. I was literally holding nothing back, taking every single microscopic piece of chaotic drama and meaningless, everyday nonsense that happened to me, and eagerly dumping it all directly into her lap. He appears to have genuinely erased every single trace of Yuan Tiantian from his subconscious, and his eyes are finally reflecting my reflection once again. Yakian remained strictly posted up by my bedside, guarding me while the IV fluids drained. Outside the reinforced glass window, the midnight sky had dissolved into a deep ink-like blackness. Down the sterile corridor, the faint rhythmic clicking of the night nurse's shoes echoed sporadically. The medicinal liquid within the transparent cylinder fell at a perfectly synchronized, unhurried pace, almost as if it were actively measuring the slow passage of time itself. I leaned my upper body back against the mechanically elevated mattress of the hospital cot, my complexion still carrying a distinctly drained ghostly white paleness. Yet my eyes were burning with an exceptionally brilliant hyperfocused intensity. It was as if I was desperately clawing through a thick, suffocating fog, frantically trying to dredge up a lost era of history that my own brain had completely locked away. I fired off a relentless barrage of deeply personal questions, all meticulously centered around the missing chronicle of those specific 6 years, the blank canvas of my forgotten reality, Yakian. At the absolute dawn of the conversation, merely offered clipped, calculated, monosyllable responses, even actively attempting to pivot the subject matter away entirely. After all, the dark history of those exact 6 years represented an absolute living nightmare to her, defined by a million instances of suffocating unspoken silence, by helplessly watching my retreating figure walk straight into the arms of another, and by a toxic cocktail buried deep inside her soul, a monstrous jealousy that threatened to entirely consume her, intertwined with absolute crushing powerlessness. Those were the absolute most toxic and agonizing 6 years between us. A dark chapter she completely refused to exhume, despising the thought of uttering even a single syllable about it. Yet every single time she was about to retreat into total radio silence, her hyper-focused gaze would inevitably collide with my searching eyes, which carried zero baggage, bitterness, or lingering trauma from the past, reflecting nothing but raw, unfiltered curiosity, as crystal clear as an early autumn stream, unmarred by any of the historical grime or debris of yesterday. Staring directly into a pair of eyes that completely pure, she realized she was utterly incapable of erecting her standard psychological walls. And so those bitter, agonizing fragments of our history were ultimately pried loose and dragged into the light piece by piece by my relentless questions. So this Yuan whatever girl, how on earth did I even cross paths with a toxic red flag like her? Yakian's fingers began to unconsciously trace the smooth, cold surface of the metallic hospital bed railing, the biting chill of the steel seeping straight through her fingertips. Her voice remained entirely flat, clinical, and precisely measured, betraying absolutely zero emotional variance on the surface. Yet beneath that mask she alone could feel the ancient volcanic fury buried deep within her chest, beginning to smolder and burn with a low agonizing heat once more. Yuan Tian. She was a graduate student attending our university campus. Back when you severely sprained your ankle, I was the one who physically carried you all the way to the campus medical clinic. She paused abruptly for a microsecond, almost as if she could still tangibly feel the phantom memory of my body weight leaning heavily against her frame all those years ago. From that moment on, for every single follow-up checkup and bandage change, I was right there by your side, accompanying you to every appointment. However, by the time your final scheduled evaluation rolled around, you had practically recovered, and seeing that you could walk perfectly fine without any noticeable limp. Combined with an urgent matter I had to handle, I failed to accompany you to the clinic that afternoon. And that precise, singular afternoon was when you officially ran into her. A single solitary instance of absence. Just one microscopic slip-up after guarding him step by step with absolute devotion. Yet she was completely powerless against the cruel twist of fate. A seemingly trivial accidental misalignment of scheduling caused Ah-Chen to fall into absolute instant infatuation with another woman. To this very second, reflecting on that day feels like a jagged splinter, permanently embedded in the absolute softest, most vulnerable tissue of my heart. And then what happened? I prompted, sounding exactly like someone casually listening to a dramatic biography that had absolutely nothing to do with me. From that exact milestone onward, you began keeping deep, heavily guarded secrets from me. Acting suspiciously, sneaking around behind my back, and remaining totally checked out every single day. My corporate venture happened to be hitting its most critical milestone stage, forcing me to grind relentlessly and completely blurring the line between day and night. By the absolute first moment, I finally secured the time and cognitive bandwidth to look for you. You straight up marched into my office and bluntly dropped the bombshell that you were planning a grand romantic confession to ask Yuan Tiantian to be your girl. A heavy, suffocating silence immediately blanketed the recovery room for a long beat, punctuated solely by the faint, low-frequency rhythmic humming of the medical monitoring equipment. Then, how on earth did the two of us ultimately end up getting legally married? My brows gradually knitted tightly together in absolute bewilderment, as I once again voiced the singular burning mystery that had been violently swirling inside my mind. Ever since the absolute microsecond I woke up this morning, remaining completely inexplicable to me. Down the line, you abruptly uncovered the harsh reality. That Yuan Tiantian wasn't just leading you on, but playing the exact same romantic games with multiple guys. And the absolute nail in the coffin was that her family had already locked her into a high-profile strategic arranged marriage with a wealthy fiancé. In a sudden fit of absolute unbridled rage, you tracked me down and begged for a shotgun wedding. At that moment, you looked precisely like a pathetic shivering puppy that had been brutally abandoned on the streets. And the absolute second my heart softened for you, I cave in and agreed to sign the papers. But Jie Yakian was feeding me a beautifully fabricated lie. The brutal reality was that she had spent years desperately yearning for his love, but getting absolutely nothing in return. So the exact millisecond he was drowning in absolute suffocating regret and despair, I stepped forward and mercifully granted her a single golden ticket into my life. Wait, so the male lead was actually the homewrecker this entire time. Holy crap, I got aggressively manipulated into becoming the side piece. I violently jerked my upper body straight up from my leaning posture, my voice abruptly spiking to a piercing volatile octave fueled by sheer shock and unbridled fury. The aggressive motion causing the IV needle embedded in the back of my hand to violently shift. The words tore past my lips in a wave of utter disbelief, instantly followed by a massive surge of absolute absurdity flooding my entire consciousness, leaving me completely paralyzed, not even knowing what expression I should form on my face. I kept prying and drilling Xie Yaqian about the hidden chronicles of those specific 6 years, partly because I desperately needed to hear her verbal narrative, but even more so because I was dying to see what the omniscient live chat stream would expose next. The main male and female leads were literally a match made in heaven, a total love at first sight trope. A childhood sweetheart can never beat a sudden soulmate. The second female lead honestly took a well-deserved L. The heroine's relationships with all those other wealthy guys are purely transactional acts. The only man she holds genuine, authentic feelings for is the male lead. Oh please, the heroine is literally a serial cheater running a whole harem. And the male lead has suffered mental breakdowns countless times solely because of her toxic gaslighting. You guys need to understand that as the sole corporate heiress to the massive UN empire, which is crawling with cutthroat, illegitimate siblings plotting to usurp her throne. She absolutely had to secure absolute corporate dominance by any means necessary first, yes. Her actions are purely high IQ strategic maneuvers. Every single man outside of the male lead is merely a pawn in her political theater. Just political theater, tick. Then explain why on earth she never dissolved her arranged marriage to openly be with the male lead, when the male lead was getting absolutely crucified online and doxxed as a malicious homewrecker. She literally vanished into thin air like a total coward. And you clowns dare to call that true love. The live chat stream erupted into an absolute chaotic flame war. I absorbed the narrative given by Xie Yaqian, which was delivered in a restrained tone, yet held an absolutely staggering immense amount of dark data. The chronological history of Yuan Tiantian across those hidden 6 years gradually began to piece together within my mind, forming a crystal clear, horrifying picture. When you strip away the drama, it was nothing more than a thoroughly cliché transactional romance story. She was driven by a monstrous, unbridled ambition, clawing her way through her family's toxic hierarchy to secure ultimate power while simultaneously refusing to abandon the thrilling rush of her emotional fixation. And so she masterfully strings me along by weaponizing false promises of eternal true love, all while tightly maintaining her high-profile engagement to a powerful fiancé, who could guarantee her massive corporate and financial advantages. She was actively playing both sides of the fence to maximize her gains, until her dirty secrets were forcefully dragged into the light. I ended up taking the absolute fall, carrying 100% of the public shame and homewrecker labels, while the very woman who swore I was her entire universe didn't possess a single shred of courage to step up and shield me when the internet attacked. This entire narrative structure is literally a textbook trash-tier dog blood melodrama novel. I genuinely absolutely cannot fathom it. Was the brain-dead idiot who fell for that garbage seriously me? This doesn't align with my core operational logic at all. How on earth did I allow myself to become so utterly, completely stupid? The liquid inside the transparent IV drip chamber finally trickled down to its absolute limit, signaling that I was finally authorized to escape. This suffocating hospital wing that reeked entirely of harsh bleach and antiseptics. My eyes were completely glued to the sleek body of that luxurious Rolls-Royce parked outside, my pupils flashing with intense, unbridled excitement over and over again. Holy crap, this ride is absolute perfection. My fingers gently traced along the flawless, pristine paint job of the passenger door. $28 million? I abruptly whipped my head around to face her, my voice carrying a distinct, sharp mixture of lingering regret and raw, ambitious longing. If I hadn't crossed paths with that toxic red flag, Yuan Tiantian, all those years ago, isn't it highly probable that I would have crushed it in the business world too? I could have been absolutely swimming in cash and pulling in massive profits. And then I would have used my own hard-earned leverage to buy mega mansions and luxury hypercars. I paused mid-sentence for a dramatic beat, thrusting my chin slightly upward into the air, with a defiant, intensely petty smirk on my face. I could have easily bankrolled a whole harem of gorgeous female models or whatever. Wait, bankroll what? None of your damn business. If I want to sponsor hot models, I'm going to do exactly that. The absolute prime years of my youth were inexplicably erased by a whopping 6 years. 6 whole years, woman. I haven't even properly held a girl's hand in a normal romantic way. The exact microsecond I wake up, I find myself legally shackled straight to you. What the hell is wrong with me wanting to blow my imaginary millions on models? I'm going to do it the fleeting fragile. Moment of emotional warmth we shared during my emergency IV treatment had completely evaporated into thin air. Confronting Xie Yaqian head on, I instantly reverted straight back to our default interpersonal dynamic from years ago, saying whatever the hell crossed my mind without filtering a single syllable, with absolutely zero restraint or hesitation. Get in the car, we're heading home. I deliberately sidestepped right past her, manually yanking open the rear passenger door, and casually swung my legs inside to take a seat, acting precisely as if she were my own personally assigned chauffeur. Xie Yaqian stared at my incredibly childish yet vibrantly expressive behavior, and that intensely familiar nostalgic sensation flooded her consciousness once more. Her crimson lips couldn't help but curve into a soft, genuine smile. She forcefully yanked open the rear door, exerting a ton of effort as she tried to drag me right back out. First, had rarely ever witnessed Xie Yaqian displaying such a petty, immature side of her personality, so I simply went with the flow of her physical pulling force, allowing her to aggressively stuff me straight into the front passenger seat instead. Do you seriously view me as your personal driver? To be able to chauffeur a fine young master like myself, you should be secretly celebrating your immense luck, you know. Xie Yaqian didn't argue back any further. The luxury Rolls-Royce glided silently into the expanding midnight mist, navigating smoothly toward the massive Xi estate. The moment we pulled up to the main grand entrance of the villa, I completely loitered in the passenger seat like a stubborn mule, leaving Xie Yaqian no choice but to awkwardly and childishly pull me toward the mansion doors. The entire household staff waiting by the front steps. When on earth had they ever witnessed the young mistress and the young master projecting such an intensely intimate, playful vibe together before? In the historical past, they were either throwing toxic icy glares at each other or locked in explosive screaming domestic arguments. Yet today, it was as if they had both undergone a total personality transplant. One was making a chaotic scene, while the other was simply smiling along with endless indulgence. It seemed like the Cold War between this young married couple was finally showing some major signs of an emotional breakthrough. Xie Yaqian tightly looped her arm through mine as we navigated the grand hallway, marching straight into the master bedroom suite, and smoothly guided me to sit down upon the edge of the mattress, her cheeks suddenly flushed with a beautiful crimson blush. This completely unexpected wave of pure gentleness caught me totally off guard, causing me to blink in a daze. The words slipped out of my mouth automatically. Wow, you've actually changed an immense amount. Are you subtly trying to imply that I've aged again? Is that it? Lest you forget, we are exactly the same age. In fact, you are technically a whole week older than me. So based on your own logical deduction, aren't you just using a roundabout way to call me old? Not at all. Yakian smoothly turned on her heel and glided toward the walk-in closet. A faint, incredibly mesmerizing smile playing on her lips. Go take your shower first. We need to get ready for bed. My train of thought instantly derailed into a highly suspicious territory, vividly imagining the scandalous events that could potentially transpire post-shower. I asked in a highly defensive, guarded tone, wait, what exactly are we doing? And I will even shackle you to me with heavy iron chains, just to ensure you don't sneak off into the dead of night. This is literally unlawful imprisonment. I am 100% dialing the cops on you. Oh, please go right ahead and call them. We are legally wedded spouses, remember? The absolute second I explained to the police officers that this is simply a little bit of spicy bedroom roleplay between a husband and wife. Do you honestly think they're going to interfere with us? Yakian, you absolute shameless female predator. By the time I finally emerged from the steamy bathroom, clad in nothing but a loose, silky pair of pajamas, Yakian inexplicably experienced a brief flash of sheer awkwardness. She abruptly stood up and instantly locked herself inside the bathroom to wash up. Right at that exact microsecond, the smartphone sitting idly on the vanity table suddenly illuminated with an incoming notification. President Xi, the official results for the corporate mega project auction have just dropped. We secured the absolute winning bid. The UN Corporation has been completely eliminated from the market. Yakian finished her shower, frantically towel drying her body, and anxiously pushed open the heavy bathroom door to step back out. Yet the expansive master bedroom was entirely desolated and dead quiet. There was absolutely no sign of my physical presence anywhere. Yakian's breathing instantly hitched in her throat, her entire system feeling as though it had been violently plunged into an arctic abyss. Could it be that Ah Chen has masterfully manipulated and deceived me yet again? Has he truly vanished into thin air from my reality once more? Her vocal cords carried a barely perceptible, terrified tremor. Yet there was absolutely zero response echoing back through the room. A dark, catastrophic sense of impending doom threatened to completely suffocate her entire soul. Qiao Chen? Where the hell is everyone? Get the entire security detail to locate the young master instantly. Right this second, move. Right at that exact chaotic climax, a faint, sharp clicking sound cut through the noise. At the absolute furthest end of the grand hallway corridor, the door to the auxiliary guest suite was casually pulled open. Stop shouting like an absolute lunatic. My face was completely twisted into a scowl of sheer irritation from having my peace disrupted, my tone sounding incredibly sharp and aggressive. Are you literally summoning ghosts in the middle of the night? Are you genuinely trying to prevent me from getting a single wink of sleep? Catching absolute visual confirmation that I was still physically there, Yakian's racing heart finally plummeted back down to safety, staring directly at her panicked, bordering on insane state of emotional distress. A sudden, unexpected wave of intense guilt abruptly manifested deep inside my chest. I vividly remember back before my amnesia when my foot was severely injured and sprained. Yakian had physically supported me all the way to the campus medical clinic, her mouth relentlessly lecturing and scolding me the entire walk there. Qiao Chen, I told you to stop showing off like an absolute idiot. Now look at you, you completely brought this karma upon yourself. Her mouth was executing a relentless, non-stop barrage of petty complaints. Since you successfully busted up your own ankle, why don't you keep acting like an arrogant hotshot? Just be careful not to completely break your other functional leg while you're at it. Before the final syllable could fully escape her lips, I deliberately and provocatively swung my injured leg right in front of her face, which instantly forced her to shut her mouth tight, even though the 20-year-old version of Yakian possessed an incredibly sharp, sarcastic tongue. The absolute second I found myself facing even a minor crisis, she would inevitably materialize out of nowhere to shield me, even if it was over a completely trivial, microscopic piece of everyday nonsense. Now the 26-year-old version of Yakian treats me with an intensely cold, detached apathy. Yet, down to her absolute core, she is still fiercely and desperately looking out for my well-being, because my current consciousness is frozen at its absolute youthful prime. I am technically operating on a completely different psychological wavelength than her adult self, meaning I possess absolutely zero filters or social anxieties when addressing her. You have a massive unrequited crush on me. It wasn't framed as a curious question, and it didn't carry even a microscopic fraction of hesitation. My tone was simply too overwhelmingly confident and definitive. Yakian's entire physical momentum abruptly locked up, stopping dead in her tracks. A crush on you in your absolute dreams. March your rear end straight back to the master suite right now. You are absolutely forbidden from spending the night in this guest wing. The live chat stream exploded into an absolute unbridled frenzy yet again. I merely skimmed through the highly chaotic warring comments flooding across my vision, failing to extract a single shred of actionable or useful data from the digital noise. And honestly, I lacked the cognitive energy to dissect their toxic arguments any further. Yakian had already closed the distance, standing directly in front of my face, Are you going to walk back to our bedroom using your own 2 feet? Or do I need to summon my security detail to physically haul you over their shoulders like a sack of bricks? Her gaze was incredibly sharp, piercing, and crystal clear, rendering her words an absolute non-negotiable executive order rather than a friendly compromise. I darted my eyes away to the side, completely avoiding direct visual contact. Muttering in an intensely guilty, defensive tone, I'm literally just crashing in the guest room for the night. It's not like I'm planning a midnight prison break or something. Trust me, I possess absolutely zero romantic interest in your current body. Just look at how shockingly emaciated and sickly you've become. I unconsciously lowered my head to scrutinize my own physical frame, realizing I truly was alarmingly thin, carrying a borderline skeletal, unhealthy appearance. Right at that microsecond, I managed to capture a fleeting microscopic glint of agonizing, deeply buried heartbreak flashing deep within the recesses of her eyes. Almost as if the toxic words she used to wound me had simultaneously slashed her own soul wide open. Then, if I'm really that unappealing, why on earth are you so obsessively determined to shackle me to your side? I am well aware that a catastrophic amount of drama must have transpired across these missing years. And the highly toxic way she treats our relationship right now is directly tied to those dark chapters. This is all explicitly linked to the exact chunk of history my brain completely erased, isn't it? Prior to our legal marriage, you were deeply entangled in a toxic web with Yuan Tiantian, reverting yourself into a pathetic creature that was neither human nor ghost. And during the absolute dawn of our matrimony, I initially granted you absolute, unrestricted freedom to live your life. But the very first time you went out to meet up with her, you came storming back and threw a massive 3-day tantrum, staging a hunger strike to force a divorce. I absolutely refused to sign the papers. Yet I didn't actively block you from going out to see her either. In fact, I even stationed private bodyguards to covertly shield you from the shadows. The next time I laid eyes on you, you were completely broken down at our front gates, sobbing hysterically as you confessed to me that Yuan Tiantian and her official fiancé were moving forward with their grand engagement party. On top of that, you sustained severe physical injuries multiple times entirely because of her drama. Oh, I completely forgot to mention a crucial piece of data. She currently has an active, officially recognized fiancé right now. Despite having a literal fiancé, she continuously strings you along like an absolute dog, brazenly exploiting your elite connections to hijack and secure countless massive corporate mergers, vampirically leeching off every single shred of resources from both you and my company, solely to fuel her own corporate empire's expansion. She never once fulfilled her false promises of ever marrying you, and didn't even have the absolute decency to dissolve her high society engagement. Yet you still willingly slit your own wrist in a pathetic attempt to end your life for her, hoarding lethal doses of sleeping pills, throwing massive fits of theatrical life or death drama. And to top off the absolute insanity, when her precious childhood sweetheart required a kidney transplant, you were actually brain dead enough to offer to slice out your own organ to give to him. Thank God I intervened with absolute force, locking you deep inside this mansion. Otherwise, you wouldn't just be standing here looking sickly and skeletal right now. Your physical body would have turned into rotting skeletal remains inside a casket years ago. From that exact catastrophic milestone forward, I hired professional security operatives to track your every move by day, and forcefully locked you inside our master suite to sleep right beside me by night. So don't you dare even fantasize about plotting a midnight escape from me. Wait, is that pathetic simp seriously me? Isn't this guy just an absolute legendary clown? Was my past self genuinely that embarrassingly brain dead? The more details she exposed, the more incredibly twisted and grim my expression became, plunging my entire mind into a bottomless abyss of severe existential self-doubt. Did the trashy author who manufactured this melodrama's world building possess a completely warped, severely unhinged psychological framework? I found it absolutely impossible to manifest even a single microsecond of empathy for my past self. However, I chose not to waste my limited cognitive bandwidth overthinking it. At the end of the day, my hard drive had completely wiped that data anyway. So I simply pivoted to desperately formulate a defense argument for myself. Okay, but aren't you completely overlooking the fact that I have literal amnesia right now? Precisely to prevent you from suddenly regaining your memories and staging another pathetic life or death meltdown. You are absolutely required to march your rear end back to our bedroom with me. Don't bother wasting your energy resisting me either. I've already stated I possess zero physical or romantic interest in you. I completely threw in the towel and surrendered. I was genuinely deeply moved by the staggering amount of loyalty she displayed by refusing to dump me after all these toxic years. Even though Jie Yaqian possessed a brutally sharp, venomous tongue, she was ultimately the only ride-or-die family member who would never abandon me in this world. Fine, whatever floats your boat. Honestly, looking at my own current skeletal frame, I don't blame you for having zero interest either. With that settled, Jie Yaqian forcefully guided me straight back into the master bedroom suite. She expertly and effortlessly shackled us together with the metal chain, proving that she is absolutely a woman of her word. Even while tossing and turning on the opposite edge of the mattress, I remained wide awake, muttering under my breath about how ridiculously comfortable Jie Yaqian's bed actually was. Jie Yaqian was completely drained from a grueling workday, on top of suffering 2 massive panic-inducing scares tonight. so she merely offered a blunt, exhausted response, just shut up and sleep. The following morning, a series of faint, distinct clinking noises echoed with haunting clarity through the deathly silent room. Yakian had woken up first, yet the sharp metallic scraping still managed to pierce directly into the outer edges of my consciousness. Ugh, stop being so noisy. I possess 0 morning classes today. Can you seriously just let me enjoy a single uninterrupted night of sleep? I knitted my brows together in deep irritation, unconsciously burying my face entirely into the plush pillow. Get your rear end out of bed and eat some breakfast first. A female voice echoed in my ears. If you genuinely want to sleep, you can pass right back out the absolute second you finish eating. With my eyelids still glued shut, my completely foggy, chaotic brain struggled heavily to process reality. Since when on earth did a literal woman start living inside my college dorm room? Immediately afterward, the scattered fragments of my adult memory violently slammed back together. I jerked my upper body straight up into a sitting position as if I had just been brutally scalded by boiling water. Well, look at you. Your long-term memory functions are apparently in pristine condition, considering you can still perfectly recall that your college self had 0 morning classes. I chose to remain completely silent, sitting frozen on the mattress as I descended into an even deeper state of absolute bewilderment and existential reflection. The events of 6 years ago felt precisely as if they had just transpired yesterday afternoon, yet the mature, stunning woman standing directly in front of my eyes, combined with the subtle, inexplicably foreign physical sensations operating inside my adult body, were all mutely but undeniably shouting the brutal truth at me. A massive chunk of 6 whole years had realistically and definitively slipped away. This entire scenario is completely unhinged. It makes absolutely 0 logical sense. Standard clinical amnesia causes a person to completely wipe out recent trauma. So how on earth could my brain map out the microscopic details of my ancient college days with absolute precision, yet exclusively target and delete the expansive 6-year timeline sandwiched right in the middle? And even more bizarre, borderline sci-fi existential realization abruptly and uncontrollably manifested inside my subconscious mind. Holy crap, could I have literally time traveled straight into the future? March yourself downstairs and eat some breakfast. Keep your portions strictly limited today. Don't go gluttonously overeating and land your rear end right back in the emergency room like yesterday. I let out a faint, absent-minded grunt of acknowledgement, tracking her slender, elegant silhouette with my eyes as she glided away. The heavy bedroom door was softly and precisely clicked shut behind her. I violently collapsed backward onto the mattress, yanking the thick duvet completely over my face to bury myself in total darkness, wrestling intensely within the shadows, echoed with absolute clarity throughout the dead-silent master bedroom. Terribly sorry about that. It seems I have arrived a bit late. My entire physical body completely froze up, and I violently ripped the heavy duvet off my face, darting my razor-sharp gaze across the completely deserted space. Who the hell is that? Who is hiding in this room? Greetings, little Chen. I am not physically present inside this room. Rather, I am broadcasting directly inside your brain. An internal voice inside my head, auditory hallucinations. Are these the textbook warning signs of schizophrenia? I could no longer maintain a single shred of logic or composure. Aggressively throwing back the sheets and leaping straight out of the mattress, I bolted out of the suite completely barefoot, clutching my head in sheer panic as I sprinted down the grand staircase, desperate to somehow shake off that utterly bizarre paranormal entity echoing in my skull. Yakian, who was currently enjoying her breakfast in the dining hall, instantly caught the echo of my terrified, frantic screaming, and immediately abandoned her silverware to charge toward the main foyer. She had barely cleared the first few steps when I violently collided straight into her. What on earth happened? Her eyes desperately scanned across my completely ghostly pale face. I aggressively latched onto her forearm precisely like a drowning man grabbing a literal lifeline, my words spilling out at a manic rapid-fire pace, while my entire vocal range vibrated with a terrifying tremor. I literally just heard an incredibly freaky paranormal voice. The entity literally claimed that it was operating directly inside my skull. Yakian, is my brain genuinely fried? Am I totally broken? Am I suffering a full-blown schizophrenic breakdown and experiencing wild hallucinations? What absolute nonsense are you blabbering about? Why is there 0 volume coming out of your mouth? Yakian merely knitted her delicate brows together in mild irritation, staring at my erratic behavior with absolute confusion. My frantic, desperate explanation instantly ground to a screeching halt. Are you completely deaf? I am pouring my heart out here over a crisis, and you have the absolute audacity to insult me by calling me deaf. This specific irritated retaliation managed to register with absolute clarity inside her ears. Yakian's expression instantly turned icy cold, radiating the pure disappointment of someone whose genuine care had just been violently thrown back in her face. I literally just spilled my absolute guts to you right now, and you didn't process a single syllable of my warning. Yet the exact microsecond I say you're deaf, your hearing magically functions perfectly fine. I was simultaneously frantic and incredibly aggravated. my creeping sense of pure existential terror temporarily eclipsed by a massive surge of white-hot rage. Your vocal cords genuinely failed to produce a single shred of audible sound just now. Severe amnesia, vivid auditory hallucinations. And now he's showing clear textbook symptoms of a localized speech deficit. She realized she couldn't afford to waste another second of leverage. Move. We are charting a course straight back to the medical center this exact microsecond. Right at that absolute climax. That uncanny entity once again reverberated directly inside my skull, carrying a distinct, bizarrely soothing undertone. Do not panic, host. I am absolutely not a creep or a phantom, nor are you undergoing a full-blown schizophrenic breakdown. I am officially System 0137. System 0137, my frantic struggling ground to a sudden halt. And my chaotic train of thought was instantly hijacked by this highly abrupt sci-fi terminology, steering my mind toward a completely uncharted territory. I unconsciously parroted the name aloud. Affirmative, host. System 0137's vocal tone was completely level synthetic and devoid of emotion. I deeply apologize for the scheduling conflict. I was originally programmed to link up and initiate our introduction yesterday, but headquarters summoned an emergency corporate briefing, which is why I am only successfully synchronizing with you just now. Furthermore, you are physically incapable of disclosing my supernatural existence, directly in front of any ordinary human beings. Any explicit mention of me will be automatically censored and muted from their perception. We can establish a direct verbal line of communication whenever you are inside a bathroom. Doing so guarantees total operational security and prevents the outside world from certifying you as clinically insane. So that explains the absolute madness that it wasn't that Jie Yakian had suddenly gone stone deaf. It was that my frantic explanations were forcefully censored by a cosmic firewall. A massive wave of pure unadulterated realization washed over me, causing my intensely frayed nerves to miraculously completely unwind, while a faint absurd sense of pure unbridled curiosity began to manifest in my chest. 137? That literally sounds exactly like the last 4 digits of a burner phone number. I telepathically muttered within my consciousness, which forced System 0137 into a brief microsecond of radio silence. Immediately following that, a literal digital emoji was directly transmitted and projected right across my mind's eye. Holy crap, this thing can actually broadcast reaction memes. I widened my eyes in sheer astonishment, nearly shrieking out loud in the physical world. Chao-Chen, answer me. Jie Yakian's frantic, desperate shouting violently dragged my consciousness right back to reality. Staring directly at the rapidly shifting, erratic facial expressions playing across my face, the sheer anxiety swirling deep within her soul spiked to an absolute dangerous climax. First came the total amnesia, yesterday followed by a sudden localized speech deficit and auditory hallucinations. And now he was literally staring into blank space like a total vegetable, displaying highly bizarre facial tics as these terrifying clinical symptoms stacked up. The entire prognosis was looking absolutely catastrophic. Are you genuinely okay? We are absolutely required to chart a course to the emergency room right this instant. I snapped completely back to my senses, witnessing the raw, totally unshielded panic and fierce determination blazing deep inside her eyes, and frantically waved my hands back and forth in dismissal, desperately straining to force my facial features into a normal casual expression. I'm perfectly fine, seriously, everything is totally under control. I was literally just experiencing a temporary bout of severe morning moodiness, and my cognitive functions are honestly just a bit foggy right now. Let's just hit the dining hall and grab some breakfast. I'm absolutely starving. Jie Yakian stared at me completely half convinced and deeply suspicious. The absolute second we finished clearing our breakfast plates, and right before she officially departed for the corporate headquarters, she promptly dialed the elite family physician to execute a house call, while the private medical expert was conducting my comprehensive physical evaluation. A frantic middle-aged domestic worker suddenly burst straight into the room sobbing uncontrollably. Young master, I beg of you please plead my case with the young mistress. Please stop her from terminating my employment since my mental capacity was frozen at a mere 20 years old. I had absolutely never witnessed a literal elder dropping to his knees to beg me before. I instantly extended my hands to physically hoist him upward. Please stand up first. We can calmly discuss whatever is going on. Young master, I have an elderly parent to support and my 2 young sons are both currently enrolled in elite universities. I absolutely cannot afford to lose this livelihood right now. The elite security detail instantly wired a comprehensive situational briefing from the villa directly to Jie Yakian, considering the highly encrypted phone number was officially generated only yesterday afternoon. The fact that Yuan Tiantian had successfully intercepted the intel that very same day was staggering. There was undeniably a treacherous mole embedded right inside the household staff. Yuan Tiantian was systematically monitoring every single public move our corporation made, while simultaneously playing a toxic game of hard to get with my precious Achen, deliberately manipulating his emotions from the shadows. Did she genuinely believe that Jie Yakian was a mere brainless decorative ornament, the very second I finished parsing the exact nature of this man's corporate espionage. Every single microscopic shred of sympathy residing in my chest vanished into thin air, allowing a certified spy. A two-faced traitor playing multiple sides for profit to remain stationed inside our inner circle was fundamentally identical to burying a live landmine right beneath our feet. The potential fallout was simply too catastrophic. If you possess the lack of morality to sell out Jie Yaqian today, you will absolutely auction off anyone else's secrets by tomorrow morning. Today, you are merely leaking confidential operational data. Tomorrow, you might realistically plot a full-blown assassination attempt on our lives. An untrustworthy asset like you is a liability the Xie family refuses to finance. I will ensure your final severance package is calculated strictly to corporate standards. But if you choose to continue staging this pathetic, unruly scene on my floor, I will personally file a massive lawsuit against you for severe breaches of contract and demand astronomical financial damages. The lead bodyguard relayed my executive declaration word for word in real time straight to Xie Yaqian. Xie Yaqian's initially frostbitten icy expression gradually began to thaw and soften. The family physician's comprehensive medical diagnostic report ultimately confirmed that my physical system was completely functional and healthy. Barring my alarmingly thin frame, Xie Yaqian's overall mood instantly skyrocketed into pure brilliance. This was undeniably the most genuinely joyous day she had experienced in several agonizing years. I can only pray that this beautiful amnesia charade is a performance Chen maintains for a very long time. However, this time around, I will absolutely never grant you the leverage to escape from my grasp again, Chen. It truly appeared as though he had completely wiped his hard drive. In that case, don't you dare ever recover those memories. You will remain anchored right by my side for the rest of eternity, completely willingly devoted to me and me alone. The moment I retreated back into the privacy of the master suite and collapsed onto the bed, I immediately initiated a telepathic link with the system embedded inside my skull. Hey, 0137, is there any competitive way we can rewrite that serial code designation of yours? If anyone overheard it, they genuinely assume my food delivery app was pinging me. A custom configuration is fully permissible. By what nomenclature do you desire to address me, host? First off, drop that hyperformal host protocol. I'm still at the absolute peak of my youth, remember? And secondly, can we desperately optimize your default vocal synthesis matrix? Your current delivery is way too mechanical, radiating absolute sub-zero robotic vibes. Understood. All localized settings are fully customizable. Would a dynamic, highly affectionate personality template align with your current preferences? Sure, literally anything is fine as long as you stop sounding like an unfeeling toaster. Otherwise, I possess absolutely zero motivation to engage in dialogue with you. Now, regarding your official moniker. Why don't you first break down your core algorithmic features and operational utilities? I am an elite agent deployed directly from the Male Protagonist Welfare Division, and my primary directive is the absolute salvation of the male lead. To put it in layman's terms, my code is explicitly engineered to assist you. What aspect of my existence could possibly require a full-blown divine intervention? Are we talking about the fact that Xie Yaqian keeps me locked up under maximum security? Or the part where Yuan Tiantian systematically breaks my heart? Host, there is a monumental reality-shattering piece of data that I must disclose to you first. You need to mentally brace your entire system for this impact. The existential dimension we are currently occupying is actually a scripted melodrama novel. Yeah, I'm already fully briefed on that plot twist. Wait, how on earth could you possibly possess that confidential intel? According to my diagnostics, this is completely mathematically impossible. I literally just synchronized with your brain and haven't leaked a single line of script data yet. Could it be that the auxiliary characters disclosed this meta-narrative to you and you just blindly accepted their wild theories as absolute gospel? No, that equation still doesn't calculate logically. Do you possess an alternative explanation for this discrepancy? I can literally view the live stream commentary feed floating across my vision. Is this considered a catastrophic developer glitch on your system's end? An absolute technical blunder on my part. The second I arrived yesterday, I was forcefully recalled for that briefing, and I accidentally left the live stream commentary overlay toggled to active. Consequently, you've already utilized the stream chatter to comprehensively map out the lore of this reality. Not even remotely. The live chat is constantly filled with users either playing digital card games or staging massive flame wars. The amount of actual actionable data is incredibly microscopic. The only variables I've successfully computed are that my past self was a pathetic textbook simp. The male lead, Xie Yaqian, is actually an ultra-toxic yandere tier villainess, and there's a serial cheater operating as the main female protagonist. Hey, I absolutely forbid you from slandering your own character profile like that. As the official male protagonist, you must manifest absolute self-worth and supreme dominance. This entire universe was literally engineered to revolve around you. The female lead and the villainess absolutely deserve severe, ruthless criticism. Are you completely certain that I'm supposed to be the center of this universe? Then how come every single shred of capital elite networking and ultimate plot armor always ends up conveniently serving that female lead? Look at me, I'm currently so alarmingly emaciated. that even I'm totally disgusted by how my own bones are poking through my skin. This happens to be a highly outdated, archaic melodrama novel. Back in the day, the dominant trend was ruthlessly torturing the main lead's body and soul until total ruin. However, that exact subgenre has completely fallen out of style in modern storytelling. This fictional dimension has looped through countless temporal resets and cycles. But during the most recent iterations, this localized universe has gradually veered entirely off its intended narrative tracks. Specifically, during the absolute peak of the previous cycle, the villainess fully unlocked her dark awakening and straight up murdered the female lead, before ultimately committing suicide right before your very eyes. With every single crucial character confirmed dead, the universe was forced to execute a total hard reboot. And during this exact current timeline, the villainess's strategic behavior is once again exhibiting severe abnormal anomalies. Hold on a second. What absolute madness did you just say? I died. Aren't I supposed to be the literal main character of this story? How on earth did I end up dead? Who is actually supposed to be the center of this universe? It feels like the female lead is the author's biological favorite, while the male lead was adopted from a dumpster. By what logical metric do I constantly have to be the one to kick the bucket? Is my death an absolute canonical requirement? Because before I officially kick the bucket, you better make damn sure you drag that gold-digging parasite Yuen Tiantian straight to hell with me. BZZT, System 0137, detecting a massive critical emotional spike in the host's vitals. Host, please desperately lower your stress levels. Our entire division was explicitly programmed to assist you, guiding your narrative path to successfully unlock a glorious happy ending. If your grand plan for correcting the original plotline is to force me into a beautifully toxic happily ever after ending with Yuen Tiantian, then I would honestly rather go grab a kitchen knife and stab her to death right now. Who on earth is that disgusting garbage tier ending supposed to satisfy? Seriously, what kind of unhinged psycho actually desires a woman like that? Whoever loves her can go ahead and spend the rest of their natural life shackled to her instead. Please maintain your composure. Our male protagonist division possesses supreme administrative override authority, and modern audiences are completely over that outdated toxic melodrama formula anyway. You possess total executive control over your ultimate destiny. You can actively choose to elevate the villainess to become your main heroine, or completely pivot to a zero-romance lone wolf alpha male lead narrative. Now that is more like it. My absolute ultimate wish is to secure a completely wholesome, perfectly fulfilling, and satisfying conclusion. How about I officially designate your new moniker as Tuan Yuan, the symbol of wholesome reunion? A perfect designation, host. Our ultimate operational objective is complete and absolute blissful satisfaction. Here's to a highly successful partnership from this moment forward. Wait, you still haven't broken down your actual operational utilities. How precisely do you intend to assist me? And as for that live chat overlay, it's honestly way more of a toxic nuisance than a helpful tool. They do nothing but engage in pathetic flame wars all day, and it's driving me insane. Tuan Yuan instantly apologized. Deepest apologies, host. I will terminate that feed immediately. If you ever desire to view it again, you can manually reconfigure the settings inside the bathroom. Your primary directive is to systematically complete the main storyline quests, effectively boosting your personal happiness progression meter. Every time you clear a major milestone, a massive tier of rewards will unlock for you. The ultimate grand prize is officially designated as growing old together in perfect harmony. Even if you deliberately choose a zero romance path, you will still effortlessly secure a peaceful, prosperous, and fully protected life right until your natural end. Growing old together is considered a grand prize. What happens if my luck absolutely bottoms out, and the partner I choose ends up brutally stabbing me in the back? You possess the executive authority to instantly replace them at any given microsecond. Whomever you designate as your new partner will seamlessly inherit the conditions of that grand prize. The male protagonist system is hard-coded to prioritize your absolute well-being above all else. Alright, I suppose that's somewhat acceptable. However, I still have one glaring question. In my own mind, I was literally sitting in a college lecture hall just 2 days ago. Yet now I'm suddenly 4 years deep into a marriage. What caused this massive temporal distortion? About that, please allow me to construct a desperate alibi. Wait, scratch that. Please allow me to logically explain the technical malfunction. Right at the dawn of the narrative timeline, I attempted to transport your consciousness to headquarters to link up with our central mainframe. Naturally, fictional characters are systematically blocked from retaining long-term memories of the grand overarching plot. Unfortunately, my system software upgrade took an astronomical amount of processing time. You and I were originally scheduled to materialize back from Headquarters 6 whole years ago, but a severe network latency issue completely bottlenecked my technical evolution. A single standard day at Headquarters translates directly to 1 full calendar year within this localized pocket dimension. I desperately tried to recalibrate our destination to drop you back at the exact moment your marriage commenced, but the chronal trajectory completely missed the mark and accidentally dumped us right into this current highly catastrophic present. My body and mind have been absolutely brutalized here, and you're telling me I skipped college for this? Are you seriously telling me you're just a total novice too? This is beyond unreliability. It's a complete joke. Why on earth are you throwing a massive fit over this? I happen to be an AI system that literally just graduated from the academy this semester, and you are officially my very first active deployment assignment. What are you seriously telling me you have zero field experience? Personally, I already know I'm not exactly the most reliable asset around. I'm officially starting to heavily interrogate your actual operational competence. Rest assured, I possess absolute unyielding confidence. I firmly believe that you will definitively secure absolute blissful happiness. I sighed deeply, realizing that 6 entire years of my natural life had just been completely erased for nothing. So was I technically physically present during those missing 6 years or completely absent? Rest assured, your physical avatar definitely existed within this dimension, and your character was strictly executing the plot points laid out in the original novel. Essentially, the core system program was running the world on autopilot during those 6 years, commonly referred to as the automatic control sequence. Well, if this universe is fully capable of operating on total autopilot, then what the hell do you even need my actual consciousness for? According to standard logic, the predestined plot of this novel dictated that I would naturally stumble down this exact path of absolute ruin anyway. The automated system code would have executed this exact tragic sequence regardless. So what difference does it make if I'm at the wheel or not? Furthermore, looking at how that version of me behaved versus my actual personality, the discrepancy is simply astronomical. There is absolutely no way in hell I would ever willingly commit such pathetic atrocities. The core difference is that while the system-controlled body sustained massive physical trauma, it operated completely devoid of pain receptors, emotional range, or independent cognitive thought. But you actually possess a soul, now that I'm explicitly back in control of my own faculties. How on earth could I ever allow myself to perform such mind-bogglingly idiotic stunts? That puppet wasn't me. It was absolutely undeniably not me. Standard auxiliary characters merely burn through their scripted lines and immediately get written out. But your character profile is uniquely built different. Your absolute beginning and ultimate conclusion are completely shielded from narrative railroading. You possess total executive freedom to live exactly how you see fit. Only that messy middle section was locked down by the plot. The miserable shell who allowed himself to be manipulated like that was fundamentally not me. He was nothing more than a mindless, brain-dead string puppet, forced to dance along to a trash-tier script manufactured by someone else. It wasn't a reflection of my actual desires or personal agency at all. The pathetic version of me trapped inside that plotline and the current me are two completely distinct entities. His logic and overall decision-making matrix are things I can't even remotely comprehend, let alone actually execute with a straight face, forcing me to play the absolute fool over and over again. If it happened just once or twice, I might let it slide. But it is mathematically impossible for me to be that consistently brainless. It is completely natural for you to feel like that scripted puppet wasn't the real you. The version of you chained down by the mandatory plot armor was fundamentally a complete corporate fabrication. Only the choices you make when you are living completely unfiltered and true to yourself represent your true authentic identity. No matter what kind of insane cosmic data you throw at me, I will absolutely never validate those missing 6 years as part of my life story. The behavior was way too profoundly brain dead. I am physically incapable of such sheer cringe. By the way, what actual broken abilities do you possess to back me up? My ultimate signature utility is a time rewind function which can be deployed exactly 3 times. Excellent, initiate a full temporal rewind right now and drop me back to 6 years ago. We can kick off our narrative survival missions from the very beginning. Time rewind can unfortunately only be executed over short-term temporal intervals. Fine, whatever. Let's just keep that specific cheat code locked and loaded for an emergency. What exactly are the milestone phase rewards for the main storyline quest Ma? You mentioned that this represents the main storyline narrative, meaning that beside the main campaign, there are bound to be hidden side quests, right? Is it safe to assume that the milestone rewards are completely randomized mystery boxes? Even I possess absolutely zero knowledge regarding what godly loot might drop from them. Side quests will be systematically triggered based on the specific crucial figures you encounter, populating completely at random within your local interface. You maintain total executive agency to either accept the challenge or completely ignore it. Well, that honestly sounds quite entertaining. Meanwhile, back in the real world, having successfully conquered the high-stakes government bid, locking down an absolutely foolproof, hyper-profitable mega project right into our corporate vault, the shifting tides meant one definitive thing. The Zia Group would completely separate themselves from the massive pack of competing corporations, ruthlessly tearing through the corporate battlefield to stand completely unrivaled. The very night Yuan Tiantian intercepted the catastrophic diagnostic results, she locked herself deep inside the imposing Yuanxi Tower, perched right inside the luxurious penthouse CEO suite. The entire corporate floor was completely abandoned, leaving her entirely isolated in the dark. The official digital notification delivering the bidding results glowed with an icy, merciless aura across her high-res desktop monitor. Every single alphanumeric character piercing straight into her retinas like a localized needle strike. She gradually hoisted herself up, pacing slowly toward the massive floor-to-ceiling glass windows, staring out at the blinding, sprawling neon nightscape of Haishi City. This entire golden territory, which she confidently assumed would soon be absorbed under her absolute iron-fisted commercial empire, seemed to be explicitly mocking her utter technical incompetence at this exact microsecond. She erupted into a state of pure unbridled hysteria, violently obliterating everything in sight. Having fully vented her white-hot rage, she stood panting heavily amidst the absolute battlefield of wreckage, her long hair completely disheveled and unraveled, while the chaotic strands framing her forehead were entirely drenched in cold sweat. Suddenly, her smartphone screen illuminated the darkened space, flashing an incoming voice call from her high society fiancé Chi Ibai. She completely ignored the connection prompt, merely glaring at that blinking contact identifier with a pair of unbelievably venomous sub-zero eyes, exactly 3 months prior. In a desperate bid to secure the maximum and aggressively locked down a strategic capital injection from the elite Qi family. Wen Tiantian had signed a high-stakes cutthroat gambling agreement with Qi Yibai. If the project succeeded, the Qi family would absorb a massive 15% equity stake. If the project collapsed, she was legally bound to repay the entire principal plus a brutal 20% annual interest within 3 years, collateralizing the debt with her own personal 8% founders' shares. Furthermore, she had explicitly sworn a high-stakes blood oath before her biological father, Yuan Fengtai, despite technically operating from behind the scenes, remained the absolute undisputed ruler of the empire. A ruthless patriarch who respected cold efficiency over family bloodlines. He already possessed a massive army of legitimate heirs, not to mention an untold number of illegitimate children lurking in the shadows. With Yuan Tiantian suffering this absolute catastrophic defeat, her overall standing within the corporate dynasty was completely and utterly compromised. The next morning at the break of dawn, Yuan Tiantian forced himself to suppress his chaotic emotions, desperately trying to make a grand comeback. He immediately reached out to several small and medium-sized tech firms that had previously shown an interest in collaborating with him, scrambling to push forward a few high-risk, high-reward projects. He desperately hoped short-term profits would win back his father's broken trust. Right around noon, Qi Yibai's powerful father, Qi Zhengping, called exactly as anticipated. After a brutal barrage of warnings and immense pressure, the line went dead. The fake smile on Yuan Tiantian's face vanished into thin air, replaced by a gaze so terrifyingly cold it could kill. Just a few agonizing seconds later, he violently hurled his phone onto the brand new office desk. That cunning old fox actually dares to threaten me. Damn it. Every single one of them thinks they can step on me while I'm down. Meanwhile, Jie Yaqian grew overwhelmed with work after securing the massive project. But no matter how insanely busy he was, he would instantly check the hourly updates sent by the bodyguards regarding my exact situation back at the villa. It had already been 3 grueling hours, and I hadn't stepped foot out of my bedroom. Xie Yaqian, who had always been obsessively hyperfixated on me, felt a sudden wave of deep anxiety washing over him. Realizing something was wrong, he knew that when a kid stays silent, they're cooking up trouble. He ordered the bodyguards to check the villa and knock on the door, demanding to know what the young master was up to. "Young master, are you in there?" "I'm just playing video games." "What the hell do you want, yo?" "The young master is just gaming inside. Everything is perfectly fine." Hearing my annoyed voice, Xie Yaqian finally let go of his suffocating anxiety. Over the next few days, Xie Yaqian grounded out at the company by day, while I stayed locked in the house gaming nonstop, mic'd up and checked out. During this time, whenever I tried to step outside, every single attempt was instantly shut down by Xie Yaqian. By night, the two of us were bound and restrained by a cold golden chain, lying on opposite edges of the massive bed, separated by a strict distance of over a meter, bruising egos. The only massive inconvenience was that, in order to bulk up and gain weight as fast as possible, I started stuffing my face with multiple extra meals every single day. I was even eating and drinking heavily right before hitting the sack. Naturally, my midnight bathroom runs constantly forced me to wake Xie Yaqian up with his sleep constantly interrupted throughout the night. His already fragile insomnia worsened into an absolute nightmare. After this state of affairs dragged on for a while, whispers and rumors began spreading like wildfire through the ZA Corporation that I was absolutely draining their CEO, pushing him past his absolute limit. Meanwhile, Yuan Tiantian was utterly desperate to win back his father's broken trust, scrambling frantically to collaborate with any small-time company he could find. As for him getting brutally cursed out and blocked by me at the bidding venue, he was initially completely furious about the humiliating rejection, but then he convinced himself that I had actually been obedient in the end, stalling Zieyakian just enough to keep him completely out of the bidding arena. He fully rationalized that deep down I was still utterly head over heels for him, and that I was merely throwing a petty tantrum. Unfortunately for him, his subordinates were completely incompetent, even though Zieyakian never showed up to the venue. They still managed to completely blow it and lose the massive project anyway. Later, when he dug up intel showing I was hospitalized all because I tried to help him, he actually spared a brief moment to text me some fake low-effort concern. Naturally, I left him on absolute read. He assumed I had lost contact only because my freedom was being brutally restricted, so he spammed my old phone number with a barrage of texts, saving them up as future ammunition to confront others later on. It had already been a full grueling half-month since I transmigrated into this world. Any shred of excitement or novelty I felt at the very beginning had long been utterly crushed by this suffocating lockdown existence. Every single day the moment I forced my eyes open, all I saw was this ultra-luxurious yet deathly cold sterile bedroom, mindlessly doom-scrolling through short videos just to watch other people actually live. My knuckles and joints were aching and throbbing from the endless swiping, slamming myself flat onto the mattress. I aggressively tossed my phone aside and summoned the system yelling, "Tuan Tuan, can we seriously not trigger any main story quests or side missions right now? I can't even lay my eyes on a single living soul. I'm just trapped in this room gaming day in and day out. I'm about to get severe carpal tunnel syndrome at this rate. Host, how about we pull off a stealthy escape and sneak out of here? If I just break out, won't that just trigger the exact same train wreck original plot?" In the original timeline, Zieyakian locks me away in a golden cage. I desperately tried to make a run for it, only to end up getting brutally betrayed and harmed by Yuan Tiantianke, before getting dragged right back into confinement by Zieyakian. With how incredibly frail and weak this pathetic body of mine is right now, one wrong move and I'll literally drop dead on the spot. Honestly, you make a very solid point. So for now, you absolutely must focus on nursing yourself back to health. Your health is your greatest asset after all. And no matter what crazy mission comes next, you're going to need a peak physique. Oh right, speaking of getting your body back in top tier shape. Host, that's it. If you can successfully restore your body weight back to a perfectly healthy standard, that will officially count as completing the very first phase of your ultimate happiness objective. Wait, what did you just say? Nursing my body back to health actually counts toward completing the objective. Precisely, to achieve a true happy ending, peak physical and mental health is the absolute first step. So what exactly is the standard for being healthy here? At the bare minimum, your vitals and metrics must align with standard health index criteria, with 0 underlying illnesses. For you specifically, host, it simply means you need to pack on some serious meat. I've been grinding and stuffing my face for a solid half month just to gain a pathetic 3 or 4 pounds. Host, you stand at a towering 188.8 centimeters, which means your weight should be 140 pounds at the absolute minimum. Anything below that threshold is dangerously unhealthy. I stared down at my skeletal skin and bones frame and nodded in grim agreement. I aggressively tossed my phone aside. Starting today, I'm going to force feed myself even more. I sprinted downstairs, making a beeline for the kitchen to find Nanny Wang. Nanny Wang starting from this very moment. Cook me the most calorie-dense, mass-gaining, and nourishing meals you can think of. Basically, if it's packed with nutrients, whip it up. You got it. Don't you worry, young master. I'll make sure you get bulked up and sturdy in no time. However, it seemed her interpretation of nourishing was wildly off track. At the dinner table that evening, I stared at the massive feast laid out before me and began devouring it like a starving beast. Zieyakian's intense gaze slowly scanned across the dining table. Charcoal grilled oysters, medium rare steaks, tender deep sea fish, vibrant chives stir-fried with eggs, and a literal ultimate stamina-boosting tonic soup. To top it all off, a cup of goji berry stamina tea was sitting right next to it. This specific culinary combination was sending an outrageously blatant message. Young master, the son-in-law, explicitly requested this menu this afternoon, stating that from this day forward, we must prepare the heavy energy-boosting tonics to completely revitalize his health. Our son-in-law certainly has quite the unique intentions. Zieyakian's lips twitched violently for a brief moment. He shifted his gaze entirely onto me. Meanwhile, I was completely buried in my food working overtime. One hand was aggressively gripping an oyster shell, slurping it down, while my other hand stabbed a massive chunk of beef and shoved it straight into my mouth. Xie Yaqian closed his eyes tightly, trying to process the madness. He dismissed Nanny Wang, signaling her to leave the room. The dining room fell silent, save for the faint clinking of utensils, and the aggressive wet sounds of me furiously chewing my food. Does it taste good? It's amazing Nanny Wang's cooking skills are absolute top tier. This soup is incredibly rich. I completely abandoned all etiquette and let out a massive unbothered burp. Xie Yaqian locked his eyes onto me, realizing that my gaze held absolutely nothing but pure unadulterated appreciation for the food, with zero hidden suggestive meanings whatsoever. He suddenly realized that his brief moment of hesitation earlier was entirely him being overconfident and reading too much into things. Picking up his chopsticks, he smoothly composed his expression and began to eat. Hey, hurry up and eat. Look at how much food is left. If you don't dig in, I'm literally going to devour all of it. The moment the words left my mouth, I ladled another overflowing bowl of soup for myself, completely determined to execute my mass-gaining plan to the absolute end, watching me vacuum down the food like a literal hurricane. Xie Yaqian's eyelid began to twitch violently again, prompting him to drop a casual warning. You might want to slow down and eat a bit less. If you keep binge eating like this, Dick, be careful you don't ruin your stomach again like last time, and end up getting rushed straight back to the hospital. No way, I'm perfectly fine, I thought to myself, utterly ecstatic, already calculating exactly how many ounces of meat this single meal would pack on. Meanwhile, Tuan Tuan was tracking my caloric intake in real time, confirming that my current consumption was still nowhere near the danger zone, knowing exactly what I was doing. I confidently picked up another massive clump of stir-fried chives, seeing me feast with such pure unadulterated joy. Xie Yaqian unconsciously found his own appetite increasing as well, as the pitch-black night deepened. He lay on the bed barely a meter away from me, his body heat radiating noticeably higher than usual, as a wave of restless thoughts began to churn deep within his mind. Lately, the way Ah Chen has been acting just feels so incredibly unfiltered, as if he completely wiped clean all the traumatic baggage of the past few years. This definitely doesn't seem like some calculated act. This level of emotional detachment and genuine indifference is something nobody could fake for this long, let alone make it look this profoundly real. Xie Yaqian's chaotic thoughts unconsciously drifted back to the days before he turned 20, back to that fleeting golden era of their youth. Those long-buried, withered emotions of the past suddenly began to quietly resurrect themselves upon facing this newly amnesiac, stable version of me. That restless, deeply guarded heart of his was once again beating with a fierce, burning intensity. But how could I have ever guessed the absolute emotional turmoil raging inside his mind? At the very beginning, I was completely against sharing a room with him, let alone sleeping in the exact same bed. But after coexisting under the same roof for the past half-month, I had gradually confirmed my suspicions. Xie Yaqian simply wanted to prevent me from making any contact with Yuan Tiantian, hyper-focusing entirely on shielding my safety. Other than that, he didn't seem to harbor any ulterior motives or hidden agendas toward me whatsoever. After grinding through this extreme nutrient-loading regimen for an entire week, all due to the massive amounts of food I was shoving down my throat every day, my body weight had visibly and significantly increased. My arms and legs, which used to look incredibly frail and skeletal, finally began to fill out with a healthy layer of solid mass. Early one morning, I quietly stepped onto the weighing scale on my tiptoes, and when I saw the needle lock firmly in place at 55 kilograms, I couldn't help but let a massive triumphant grin split across my face. I turned left and right, admiring my reflection in the mirror from every angle. However, while I was making serious gains, Xie Yaqian, who had been matching my diet, seemed to have a volatile, slow-burning fire, quietly igniting deep down inside his body. At first, it was just him tossing and turning, unable to catch a single wink of sleep. After all, his body was naturally in peak hypervirile condition. But as time went on, it morphed into a form of slow, agonizing mental torture. He would frequently snap awake in the dead of night, relying solely on the dim ambient moonlight filtering in, to silently fixate his gaze on my deeply asleep, peaceful face. Meanwhile, I was completely dead to the world, entirely oblivious to his struggle, staring at my completely unguarded, deeply trusting face. That suffocating restlessness burning inside him ultimately dissolved into a heavy sigh of absolute helplessness. Forget it. I need to take things slow and pace myself. He couldn't bear the thought of disrupting my deep slumber, nor did he want to force himself to take a freezing cold shower to put out the flames. And he certainly couldn't bring himself to explain this embarrassing predicament to me. On yet another pitch-black night, that familiar, suffocating heat surged through him once again, hitting him with a far greater intensity than ever before. Beads of sweat began to break out across Xie Yaqian's forehead. Gently tossing the duvet aside, he grabbed the key and quietly unlocked the heavy chain binding his wrist. Right then, I subconsciously rolled right into the center of the bed in my drowsy state, pressing my skin directly against his bare radiating arm. He panicked, practically sprinting into the bathroom like a man fleeing for his life, desperate to wash away all the chaotic, wild thoughts running rampant through his mind. When I finally woke up the next morning, I had absolutely no clue about the pure chaos that had unfolded the night before. I got out of bed and headed downstairs to eat breakfast business as usual. Yakian stared at my rapidly improving healthy complexion, feeling a deep sense of genuine satisfaction welling up inside him. Yakian, it's getting insanely boring staying locked up in this house. I need to get out of here. Plus, I seriously think I need to look for a real job. Me just freeloading and rotting away in your house day after day. It's honestly starting to look pathetic, like I'm some sort of pet, hearing me use such an absurd description to roast myself. Yakian couldn't help but let out a low chuckle. Ah-Chen was still exactly the same as back then. When he chose to be savage, he wouldn't even spare himself from the verbal execution. Look, I know you're terrified of letting me step foot outside, but I am literally growing mold staying inside this house. I am no longer that pathetic Chao Chen who would literally choose life or death over some romance. I am the ambitious, driven 20-year-old Chao Chen Ishet. I want to strive for success, work hard, and live a proactive, positive lifestyle. I desperately need a real career, and honestly, I will take any job at this point. Even if I don't know the ropes yet, I can always take my time and learn. I refuse to be locked up and domesticated in your house forever like a trophy. It genuinely makes me feel like some helpless pet like a stray cat or dog, and completely strips away my humanity. Host, you are absolutely crushing it. This is the real uninhibited version of you. As expected, that puppet bound by the original storyline wasn't the real you at all. Just look at how the comment section is hyping you up right now. I am determined to be the absolute master of my own destiny. I don't necessarily have to be some flawless elite genius, but I must possess the absolute right to make my own decisions and chase the goals I actually care about. And right now, all I want to do is secure a job, reintegrate into society, and become a completely self-sufficient, independent individual. To see the old Ah-Chen finally reclaiming his true self. It was a magnificent sight he hadn't witnessed in years. Alright, fine, you can work as my personal assistant and shadow me every single day. That is the only option on the table, take it or leave it. Yakian's face darkened with instant irritation, his entire demeanor turning incredibly tense and defensive. What's with that judgmental look on your face? What is that supposed to mean? What kind of attitude is that? Fine, I get it already. I accept your terms. It's just that the mere thought of being stuck with you 24/7 makes me utterly miserable. Does that brutally honest reason satisfy you? Hey, I'm only doing this because I can't trust you not to play me for a fool. What if you use this job as a convenient cover? To sneak off and throw yourself back at that toxic Yuan Tiantian, acting all melodramatic and suicidal all over again. I'd be the one forced to clean up your mess and rescue you. His words immediately reminded me of what Tuan Tuan had disclosed earlier, how in the previous tragic cycle of this world, the moment he brutally ended Yuan Tiantian, he immediately chose to follow me into the afterlife. To be completely fair, I truly doubted Yakian harbored any romantic feelings for me. After all, our dynamic had always been incredibly chaotic and average. Even now, we could easily trigger a petty argument over something as simple as breakfast. For the first 20 years of our lives, this petty bickering was a daily routine. We couldn't exchange a few sentences without starting a massive fight, only to instantly make up and move on a few moments later. I found it completely impossible to wrap my head around why he would ever make such a final extreme decision. Could it be that Yakian is just as psychologically damaged as Yuan Tiantian? Do they seriously only wake up and realize their true feelings after someone dies, only to spend the rest of their lives drowned in useless regret? Oh, whatever, I get it. If you want me to be your personal assistant, then an assistant I shall be. The moment the sleek, black luxury sedan pulled up smoothly at the ZA Corporation's main entrance, the surrounding employees unconsciously slowed their pace to steal a glance. As the car door swung open, the first one to step out was their habitually aloof, deathly cold powerhouse of a CEO. But in the very next second, everyone's attention was instantly and violently captured by my presence right beside him. Yakian remained completely unfazed by the sudden storm of burning stairs, marching forward hand in hand with me straight toward the executive VIP elevator, igniting a sudden explosion of uncontrollable hushed whispers across the lobby. A few of the bolder employees instantly whipped out their phones, absolutely spamming the official company office gossip group chat. Holy crap, what is actually happening right now? Chief Assistant Ju looked fast. The CEO just walked in with an insanely attractive man. Wait, is that Chao Chen, the same Chao Chen who always acts completely unhinged and hysterical? The guy whose entire world supposedly revolved around Yuan Tiantian? Why on earth would Yakian bring someone like him into the corporate headquarters? With a crisp chime, the executive elevator doors slid open at the top floor, and Yakian stepped out with absolute dominance, with me following close behind his heels like a shadow. The executive floor staff were instantly paralyzed with sheer shock. Assistant Ju come into my office immediately. Right away, boss, Assistant Ju snapped out of his daze, immediately composing himself. and quickly keeping pace right behind us. Good morning, boss. Good morning, young Master Chow. What are your directives for today? Before Yakian could even utter a single syllable, I boldly looked up, radiating an energetic enthusiasm that felt entirely out of place in this serious corporate setting. Could you please set up a workspace for me? Starting today, I am officially joining the workforce. Am I literally experiencing auditory hallucinations right now? Because there is no way I just heard this notorious troublemaking son-in-law of the Z family actually claiming he's here to do corporate work. This honestly sounds like an absolute disaster waiting to happen. He instinctively shifted his gaze to Yakian, desperately pleading for a reality check with his eyes. Yakian gave an almost imperceptible subtle nod of confirmation, set up an extra desk right inside my personal office, and let him start easing in with some basic entry-level tasks. No way I want to sit out there in the main area with everyone else. Just do exactly as I ordered immediately. My counteroffer getting instantly rejected was honestly entirely within my expectations. Right now, Yakian was acting like an absolute tyrannical dictator. If you dare use the excuse of coming to work to sneak out of this building behind my back, you can forget about ever stepping foot outside the villa again for the rest of your life. The moment I stepped out of his office, I locked eyes with dozens of corporate staffers who didn't have enough time to look away from their absolute gossip fest. As our gazes collided dead-on in midair, the atmosphere instantly became incredibly tense and awkward. But instead of retreating, I felt like I had finally found my pack, and a massive radiant smile instantly broke across my face. I boldly strode forward toward them, my voice clear and full of energy. Hey there. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. We're officially going to be co-workers from now on. I'm a complete corporate newbie, so I literally don't know the first thing about any of this. I'm really looking forward to learning the ropes from you all that... Oh, absolutely, you're being far too modest, sir. Acting completely oblivious to the lingering, intensely speculative stares drilling into me. I naturally and smoothly integrated myself into the group. After trading a few casual remarks, the initially suffocating and rigid tension eased up significantly. Unable to suppress her burning curiosity any longer, Employee A cautiously threw out a subtle probe. If you don't mind me asking, what exactly is your relationship with Director Z? I blinked innocently, delivering a flawless and smooth response without missing a single beat. Oh, we actually grew up together, and we're old high school classmates, sick. Wow, so that's how it is, Ike. A collective wave of sudden realization swept through the crowd. So they were literally childhood sweethearts. But just as they were speculating what kind of elite powerhouse I must be, Assistant Ju arrived alongside the logistics team, wheeling in a brand new desk, a premium office chair, and state-of-the-art computer equipment, seeing me completely surrounded by the staff. Young Master Chow, why aren't you inside Director Xia's office? Assistant Ju stopped dead in his tracks, his tone dripping with utmost respect, but that single title, Young Master Chow, was like dropping a massive boulder into a dead silent lake, instantly triggering absolute shockwaves through everyone's minds. The entire floor fell into a suffocating dead silence. This was the legendary, notoriously toxic son-in-law of the Z family. It all clicked perfectly. Now no wonder he could arrive side by side with Xie Yaqian. The mystery man standing right before them was the CEO's actual spouse. He could literally be none other than the notorious son-in-law of the Z family. Director Z, I am so incredibly sorry. I honestly have no idea what's going on, but what the entirely oblivious crowd outside didn't realize was that behind the special high-tech one-way glass of the executive suite, Xie Yaqian was standing completely still like a silent statue. His intense gaze pierced right through the glass, locking dead onto my body. His eyes swirling with a chaotic vortex of complex, unreadable emotions. Deep suspicion, calculated scrutiny, and a dark, suffocating streak of violently suppressed possessiveness. Lately, Ah-Chen has been incredibly obedient, even radiating that long-lost vibrant wit and raw energy of his 20-year-old self without a single flaw. But this could very well be Ah-Chen's most brilliant, high-level masquerade yet. I must expose a crack in his defense as soon as possible, and brutally rip off this fake mask Ah-Chen is wearing. And yet how I desperately wish that all of this was absolute reality. I wish time would just freeze forever at this exact moment, and that Ah-Chen would remain exactly like this for the rest of eternity. The boy who would genuinely smile at me, who would fearlessly talk back to me, and who, after getting teased or pranked by me, would do nothing but let out a silly, innocent chuckle. Assistant Ju worked with absolute speed and efficiency, rapidly assembling my dedicated workspace in no time. A pristine high-end computer setup and a premium, fully stocked array of office supplies were beautifully laid out. Now that I finally secured my very own corporate territory, I appeared to be profoundly locked into my work. You sat perfectly poised in front of that monitor for the entire morning, your brows furrowing in deep concentration one moment, and fingers furiously clacking away at the keyboard the next. Looking so insanely dedicated, it was almost comical. Tuan Tuan, what on earth does this spreadsheet even mean? What do these random numbers even represent? How do I even adjust the formatting layout for this document? Why does everything I make look so incredibly hideous? They literally never taught us any of this corporate garbage in college. I have absolutely zero experience with this. Also, this PowerPoint template is painfully outdated. The color palette is completely atrocious. Abiding strictly by the rule of self-reliance and survival of the fittest, I first resorted to stealthily Googling my problems on my phone. And whenever I hit an absolute dead end, I frantically spammed Tuan Tuan for an emergency, lifeline, and remote guidance. After stumbling and grinding through the grueling day, I somehow miraculously managed to check off a few basic data entry assignments. Xie Yaqian printed out the files I had submitted to him, tapping his sleek pen aggressively against several highlighted sections. The core logic right here is completely flawed. The data references cited right here are completely inaccurate, and this entire layout fails to meet the company's official guidelines. I leaned in close as he began sketching corrections and mapping out explanations on the paper. His tone was surprisingly gentle and filled with absolute patience. Before I knew it, I found myself getting completely locked into his train of thought, watching intently as he demonstrated the corrections, revamped the structure, and adjusted the formatting, silently absorbing his professional problem-solving logic. Outside the massive window, the sky gradually bruised into twilight, and my 5 p.m. end-of-shift alarm blared right on cue. The second it rang, the exhausted version of me who was hyper-focused just a moment ago instantly looked like he had been injected with a massive surge of pure adrenaline. My eyes lit up like neon signs, and with lightning-fast reflexes, I saved the file and slammed the computer shut. The entire sequence of movements was flawless and smooth as silk. Letting out a victorious cheer, I bounded out of my seat, ready to bolt right through the doors. Qiao Chen, are you just going to completely abandon these core revision notes? That's a problem for tomorrow. The labor laws explicitly dictate that once it's clock-out time, my shift is officially over. I vanished from the main office floor in a literal flash, leaving behind a massive crowd of corporate drones, who could do nothing but shoot absolute daggers of pure envy at my retreating back. I mean, who on earth doesn't want to clock out right on the dot? Unfortunately, my taste of sweet freedom was tragically short-lived. We are incredibly sorry, young Master Chow. Director Z gave explicit orders that you are strictly prohibited from leaving the premises alone. Xie Yaqian, you absolute tyrant. If you want to clock out, get back inside, finish revising these documents, and then you can leave. The official work hours are over. If I'm staying, you're paying me triple-time overtime rates. As a mere employee walking out before the actual CEO does, in any other corporate setting, you would have been fired on the spot. I gripped my phone tightly in deep frustration, glancing back up at the towering elevator shafts with a defeated sigh. Dejectedly, I hung my head and slunk right back into the elevator compartment. The lights on the executive top floor were re-illuminated solely for my miserable return. Let's finally get out of here. God, I absolutely despise mandatory overtime. I quietly trailed behind Xie Yaqian as we stepped into the elevator, this time completely silent and drained of energy. By the time Xie Yaqian drove me back to the Xie estate, the dead of night had already set in. Nanny Liu had already prepared a massive dinner long before our arrival. 6 steaming hot dishes and a rich soup were beautifully arranged on the table, radiating a comforting home-cooked warmth. The two of us quietly finished our meal without exchanging a word. I made a straight beeline back to the master bedroom, instantly jumping back onto the gaming server to butcher my opponents and dominate the map. Meanwhile, Xie Yaqian retreated to the study to grind through remaining corporate affairs. Not long after, his phone vibrated violently against the desk. Get your ass out here and let's grab a drink. Word on the street is, you actually dragged my brother-in-law to the firm today. What's the actual tea? Not going, and there is absolutely nothing going on. Oh, quit playing with me. The two of you managed to peacefully coexist for an entire day, without a massive screaming match or a toxic silent treatment. That is literally more shocking than the sun rising from the west. Yeah, well, it helps that he completely lost his memory. Xie Yaqian was getting thoroughly annoyed by the relentless pestering, firing back a few low-effort responses before totally ghosting the chat. Exactly 1 hour later, the front doorbell chimed loudly throughout the estate. Nanny Wang swung the door open, revealing Gunianian standing there with a massive mischievous grin on her face. She casually swapped her shoes clearly, knowing the layout of the place like the back of her hand. Hey, Director Z, I just officially crashed your pad. Gunianian shot a quick text to Xie Yaqian, who was resting upstairs. Where's my brother-in-law? Man, you are fiercely obsessed. Xie Yaqian instinctively shifted his gaze toward the tightly shut master bedroom door, texting back. You seriously drove all the way over here just to hunt for some petty gossip. Duh, the fact that you two didn't murder each other is an absolute miracle. There was no way I was going to miss seeing this live with my own eyes. Gunianian straightened her posture up on the sofa, her eyes practically gleaming with sheer excitement. Sheyakian replied in his usual detached monotone voice. It's not like we're some wild monkeys trapped inside a zoo layout, making it worth your time to come over and inspect us. But all jokes aside, hasn't Achin always been completely suicidal and obsessed over that toxic Yuan character? How on earth did he suddenly pull a complete personality 180? Are you absolutely sure you aren't getting played for a fool all over again? Back when I was making an absolute chaotic scene across the city for Yuan Tiantian's sake, Gunianian, being Xie Yaqian's ride or die best friend, had spent countless miserable nights drinking alongside him to drown his sorrows. Naturally, she was still deeply traumatized and guarded by the past. A fleeting trace of rare soft warmth flickered deep within Xie Yaqian's intense gaze. He has total amnesia. Oh please, last time he faked a massive migraine and claimed. He lost his memory just to manipulate your emotions. This time his tactics just evolved. No, this time it's completely real. He doesn't even have a single clue who Yuan Tiantian is anymore. But what if his acting skills just leveled up to absolute perfection? Yaqian, please don't let yourself crash and burn in that toxic trap again. Before she could even finish her sentence, the faint, distinct click of a door opening echoed from the second floor. Both of them instantly whipped their heads upward to look. Just as I casually stepped out of the room dressed in comfortable loungewear, I leaned over the second floor banister and peered down, my gaze incredibly clear, laced with a hint of confusion and curious detachment. Gunyenian instantly bolted upright, flashing her signature radiant smile as she piped up, "Hey there, brother-in-law. Did our chatting completely wake you up? Zhuo, are we being way too loud?" I smoothly glided down the staircase, giving her a quick casual nod that felt perfectly polite yet entirely distant. Hey, at that exact same microsecond, I frantically summoned the system in my mind, Yo Tuan Tuan Ye. Who on earth is this Chikik? That's Gunyanian, the female lead's absolute ride-or-die bestie from his early startup days. Their bond is completely unbreakable, making her practically the only soul alive who can actually get Sheyakian to open up and be real. A wave of sudden realization hit me as I met Gunyanian's heavily scrutinizing stare. I just walked down to grab a quick drink. Don't mind me, carry on? I strode over to the massive kitchen fridge and snatched 2 chilled bottles of mineral water. Holy crap, did he seriously just flash a genuine smile at me? He even went out of his way to greet me. Didn't he used to look at me with absolute icy hatred every single time we met? Wow, so the total amnesia rumor is actually legit. Chen's memory is completely frozen at age 20. Every person and event after that has been completely wiped from his hard drive. That is a massive win. This kind of cosmic blessing demands an absolute celebration. Come on, let's hit the clubs and slam a few drinks. My treat, Xie Yaqian, froze completely in shock for a brief moment. Fine, let's move out. Look at you already checking in and reporting your whereabouts. Yaqian, don't tell me you're actually falling for this guy all over again. Ihito. Xie Yaqian completely ignored her playful teasing, marching straight to the master bedroom door and rapping his knuckles gently against the wood. My slightly distracted, muffled voice echoed from inside the room. Pushing the door open, he saw me sitting cross-legged right on the plush sofa, my thumbs furiously blitzing across the glowing phone screen. The rank match seemed to be reaching an absolute chaotic climax. The neon glare of the display cast dynamic shadows across my face, highlighting a profile of sheer unadulterated focus, as if I were completely locked inside my own little gaming universe. Chen, I'm heading out to grab some drinks with Gunyanian, so I might end up pulling a late night. I didn't even bother to glance up for a fraction of a second, my eyes practically glued to the flashing screen. Oh, cool. Go wild. It's not like I've got you tied down to a literal leash or anything. The exact microsecond those words slipped past my lips, Sheyakian's entire body went absolutely rigid for an imperceptible moment. That casual statement cut through him like a sharp, microscopic needle, stabbing precision straight into the deepest recesses of his soul. He opened his mouth desperately, wanting to say something, but the words choked and died right in his throat, dissolving ultimately into a wave of profoundly bitter silence. In the end, he didn't utter a single syllable. He merely cast one lingering, intensely complicated glance at me, before softly pulling the bedroom door shut behind him. Inside the high-end lounge, the dim amber light swirled with a hypnotic haze, as a bass-heavy low rhythm vibrated deeply against their eardrums. Sheyakian remained absolutely tight-lipped, brutally slamming down 2 consecutive glasses of straight heavy liquor. Whoa, pace yourself. What on earth is wrong with you? We literally just got here. So what could have possibly triggered you this badly? As he hoisted a 3rd glass to his lips, Sheyakian tilted his head back, letting the burning liquid slide down his throat. Do you think I shouldn't be keeping him locked away like this? Are you insane? You're literally doing that to protect him. In the past, the second you loosened his leash, he'd bolt straight back to Yuan Tiantian, causing absolute chaos and dynamic scandals across the city. Wasn't it always you who had to step up and clean up his toxic messes? Right now, his memory is totally wiped and the situation is completely unstable, meaning you have to be 10 times more cautious. What if he goes completely off the deep end again? He absolutely loathes being caged up by me. And he doesn't harbor a single shred of affection for me either. Xie Yaqian stared blankly at the swirling rich amber liquid pooling in his crystal glass. I mean, isn't that completely obvious at this point? But at the very least, he's finally stopped throwing toxic temper tantrums. You can finally catch a breather and enjoy some peace and quiet. So just take things one slow step at a time. You absolutely cannot rush matters of the heart. Xie Yaqian, however, acted as if he hadn't processed a single word she said, silently tipping the bottle to fill his glass to the absolute brim once more. Gunyanyan could only shake her head with a heavy sigh, realizing she was officially locked in as his designated emotional therapist for the night. With their striking profiles and undeniable elite aura, the duo had already captured the intense gaze of nearly everyone in the room. Sure enough, a few moments later, a tall, impeccably dressed man holding a premium cocktail smoothly glided over, sliding effortlessly into the empty bar stool right beside Xie Yaqian. Hey there, gorgeous ladies. Drinking all by yourselves looks incredibly lonely, don't you think? How about we clink glasses and share a round together? Appreciate the offer, but sorry. My friend here is already happily married. Oh, come on. Being married doesn't mean you can't make new friends, right? It looks like this beautiful lady is having a rough night. So why don't we chat about it? So, I said I am married. The smooth, confident smirk on the man's face instantly froze solid. The man's eyes suggestively scanned her completely bare ringless fingers, his voice dripping with pure manipulative provocation as he smirked. Since you're clearly having a terrible night, I'm guessing you had a massive fallout with your husband. If you want my honest opinion, everyone needs to let loose and treat themselves once in a while. For all you know, your precious husband might be out, having his own absolute wild fun somewhere else right this second. Besides, you've already ditched your wedding band. So why stay so rigidly faithful? Life is far too short, so why not just enjoy the pleasure while it lasts? At that exact same moment, I was locked into a dynamic voice chat session with my gaming squad, viciously roasting an enemy e-couple until they were totally speechless, having the absolute time of my life. Suddenly, without a single warning, I let out a massive violent sneeze. Man, who on earth is missing me this badly? I aggressively rubbed my nose, muttering under my breath in confusion. Meanwhile, the temperature around Xie Yaqian instantly plummeted to an absolute freezing point. Get the hell out of my sight. The smooth-talking stranger was instantly paralyzed by the pure murderous intent bleeding from that stare, and scrambled backward, fleeing the lounge in absolute panic. Gunyanyan let out a heavy sigh of relief and turning her head back around, only to see Xie Yaqian lowering his gaze, staring with a dead suffocating intensity at his own right hand. His ring finger was entirely bare. My marriage with Ah Chen was an absolute sham from the very beginning. Ah Chen despised me before he lost his memories, and he still completely despises me now that they're gone. This brutal realization burned through his chest far more violently than any cheap, fiery liquor ever could. Xie Yaqian went entirely mute, slamming back glass after glass in a desperate toxic spiral. Gunyanyan felt a heavy pang of sympathy watching her bestie self-destruct. Yet she was completely at a loss for words on how to comfort him. Eventually seeing that Xie Yaqian was completely blackout drunk, she could only accept her fate and call over her personal security detail to safely escort this absolute emotional train wreck back to his estate. The dead of night had long rolled in. As the chauffeur carefully helped Xie Yaqian step out of the luxury car, a sudden icy gust of night wind whipped across his face, briefly jolting a flicker of clarity into his completely trashed mind. But his movements remained incredibly heavy and uncoordinated. He aggressively swatted away Gunyanyan's hand as she tried to stabilize him, stumbling and swaying precariously as he forced himself into the dark mansion, dragging his feet up the grand staircase one painful, agonizing step at a time. Seeing that her babysitting duties were officially completed, Gunyanyan finally turned around and headed back home. Right in front of the master bedroom door, Xie Yaqian ground to a sudden halt, leaning his heavy back against the icy, unforgiving wall, clumsily and awkwardly smoothing down the wrinkles of his skirt. Only after finishing this meticulous preparation did he finally draw in a deep, shaky breath, tightly gripping the cold metal door handle. Tian, hurry up and take this kill. I'm feeding this enemy straight to you. My intensely hyped, excited shouting echoed faintly from inside the room, slipping seamlessly through the crack of the unlatched door. Every single syllable pierced cleanly and directly into his eardrums. Xie Yaqian's hand instantly froze solid right on the door handle, the blood in his entire body seemingly turning to absolute ice in a single microsecond, before violently detonating and rushing straight to his head the very next moment. The toxic, malicious speculations the stranger had uttered back at the lounge felt like a cursed, venomous prophecy, manifesting right now in the most brutally ironic way possible. So Ah Chen never actually had amnesia. He has been playing me for a complete fool this entire time, using that dynamic, innocent gaze laced with the phantom shadow of his 20-year-old self. and relying on those deceptively gentle actions to disarm my defenses. He carefully spun a massive elaborate web of lies. It turns out that in the dark corners where I couldn't see, Ah Chen was still maintaining an incredibly intimate, unshakable connection with Yuan Tiantian. Ah, what a sickeningly affectionate pet name. Years ago, I had whispered Ah Chen's name countless times in my loneliest dreams, desperately yearning for the day he would look back and call me, with such raw, tender intimacy. But Ah Chen, he has never once called me that, not a single time. Yet he has showered another woman with that exact pet name, thousands and thousands of times over. Xie Yaqian's toxic jealousy rapidly fermented under the heavy fumes of alcohol. The severe drunkenness that had partially faded moments ago now fused violently with a cataclysmic wave of pure rage. The sheer humiliation of being played like a puppet erupted like scorching volcanic magma, instantly obliterating the absolute last remnants of his sanity. He aggressively slammed the bedroom door wide open. The warm, cozy ambient light from inside the room spilled outward, slashing a stark, dramatic contrast against the pitch-black shadows of the hallway. I was half reclined against the headboard with my gaming headset locked on, my thumb still frantically blitzing across the glowing screen, clearly startled out of my mind by the sudden explosive sound of the door cracking open. I whipped my head upward in pure shock, my face still carrying the residual carefree smile from the casual banter I was just sharing with my online squad. There, Xie Yaqian stood looming in the doorway, his face flushed with an unnatural feverish crimson, his eyes completely bloodshot, filled with a terrifying despair I had never seen before. The fiercely composed, sophisticated demeanor he usually carried was totally shattered, leaving him looking like a completely broken, violently cornered beast. His intense glare locked dead onto me, his lips trembling violently for what felt like an eternity, before he squeezed out a tearful, heartbreaking interrogation. Ah Chen, oh my yong me tisul. You completely played me. Your memory was never actually wiped. Leaving me totally bewildered, I bolted upright in bed and fired back. Played you? How exactly? I have literally never lied to you about a single thing. Never lied to me. He advanced into the room one heavy step after another, his high heels clacking sharply against the hardwood floor, as if each step were pressing down on a razor-sharp blade. Then who on earth is that precious you were just screaming to? It's Yuan Tiantian, isn't it? You've been putting on a massive performance this entire time, faking amnesia, acting all submissive, pretending to rely entirely on me, while secretly sneaking behind my back to maintain your toxic connection with her. The puzzle pieces finally clicked together in my head, and I raised my phone, caught completely between laughter and tears. Are you seriously losing your mind over this? This is literally my random online gaming teammate, and he's an actual dude. I just pulled off an insane pentakill day, so I hyped him up as a joke to celebrate its trendy slang. What kind of wild fanfiction are you writing in your head? Xie Yaqian's aggressive stride ground to a sudden absolute halt. The intoxicating alcohol fumes instantly evaporated from his system, and the blazing rage in his eyes froze over, giving way to absolute shock and humiliation. He stared blankly at the dynamic endgame scoreboard flashing on my display, then glanced back up at my entirely innocent expression. The feverish crimson on his cheeks drained away instantly, leaving his face ghost white. I softened my voice, adopting a much calmer tone. Xie Yaqian, look at me. I know exactly what you're terrified of. You're absolutely paralyzed by the fear that I'll suddenly remember Yuan Tiantian. But that version of me who was suicidally obsessed with her, that wasn't the real me. It was just a brainless puppet controlled by some cosmic script. Right now, my entire consciousness is completely frozen at age 20. And the absolute truth is, I only remember that we are childhood rivals who have been bickering since day one. He abruptly whipped his head away, his shoulders trembling subtly as he stubbornly refused to look me in the eye. Yet he didn't utter a single word to fight back. I tossed the blankets aside, stepped out of bed, and marched right up to him. The guy who used to throw his entire life away for Yuan Tiantian was completely disconnected from who I am. He was just a scripted drone. My current memories stop exactly at 20 years old. And within those memories, you and I are just lifelong frenemies who always lock horns. I still remember twisting my ankle after securing first place at the sports meet, and how you aggressively dragged me to the infirmary screaming at me the entire way up. Yet your hands were gripping my arm so gently, absolutely terrified of hurting me. I remember how much of a tsundere you used to be, putting up a tough front, but harboring a soft heart. Whenever I ran completely broke, you'd act all reluctant and complain, only to turn right around and aggressively stuff a wad of cash into my hands anyway. I remember you boldly declaring that even if every single man on earth went extinct, you would never ever catch feelings for me. Those were just heated words spoken in pure anger. Trust me, I always knew. I reached out and softly wiped away the streaming tears running down his cheeks. My movements undeniably clumsy, yet completely sincere. Over the past 2 weeks, I have seen your true colors crystal clear. You talk a big game about locking me down with literal golden chains, paralyzed by the fear that I'll run away or get hurt. Yet you consistently provide me with the absolute most luxurious life possible. You literally blew off a high-stakes multi-million-dollar corporate bidding war just for my sake. And even when you suspected I might just be putting on a massive act, you still abandon everything to sprint to my side every single time. Yakian. You are absolutely not some toxic villain. You are literally the biggest idiot on earth and the fiercest protector I have. He whipped his head up violently, his scalding hot tears splattering against the back of my hand, burning my skin. Are you truly promising me that you won't crawl back to Yuan Tiantian? Why on earth would I ever go looking for her? A toxic woman who constantly led me on, exploiting my feelings just to trample over me and use the ZA Corporation as a literal stepping stone, all while refusing to give me a single shred of genuine affection. I'd have to be completely brain dead to ever touch her with a 10-foot pole again. The guy who did those things back then wasn't me. Right now, I'm completely my own person, and I make it an absolute rule to stay far away from absolute garbage human beings. Ding host, you are literally an absolute genius. The toxic misunderstanding has been completely cleared up. 2232, I completely tuned out the system's annoying chime. I completely ghosted the system notifications, gently taking hold of Xie Yaqian's trembling hand and guiding him over to sit down right on the edge of the plush bed. As for all the chaotic trauma from the past, I'm officially issuing a formal apology on behalf of that previous version of me. He subjected you to 6 long years of absolute misery and heartbreak, leaving you completely unable to catch a peaceful night's sleep, forcing you into a corner where, despite being deeply in love with me, you felt your only choice was to lock me away just to keep me from vanishing. He absolutely failed you and he owed you everything. But I am giving you my solemn word right now, starting from this exact microsecond. Cao Chen will never cause Xie Yaqian to shed another single tear. Xie Yaqian lunged forward, throwing himself violently into my arms, locking his hands tightly around my waist, burying his face deep into the crook of my neck. The crushing weight of 6 years of suppressed trauma and agony finally erupted, causing him to sob uncontrollably like a completely broken child. I gently and rhythmically stroked his back, my heart completely breaking for him. This so-called toxic imprisonment, orchestrated by Xie Yaqian, was never about twisted narcissistic control. It was an absolute act of desperate salvation. If he hadn't relentlessly guarded me 24/7, that pathetic version of me trapped under the system's cruel script would have long destroyed himself in a toxic spiral of self-harm and sheer despair. He had utilized the most clumsy, obsessive, and paranoid methods just to protect my literal life. Listen, let's stop using those chains to lock me down from now on, okay? I'm not going to bolt, but if you're still terrified, I'll just take you with me absolutely everywhere I go. I'll stick by your side at the office, and I'll keep you company the second we clock out. I'm locked in with you for a literal lifetime. He lifted his heavily swollen, tear-stained eyes, whispering softly. Are you for real? Reallocately more real than solid gold. On top of that, I'm going to grind like crazy at the office and help you micromanage the entire Z Corporation empire. I used to be your biggest liability and a complete dead weight, but from now on, I will be your absolute unbreakable pillar of support. That historic night marked the very first time. We didn't sleep with a cold, awkward 1-meter chasm between us. I wrapped my arms tightly around him, and he curled deep into my chest, falling into a profound, tranquil slumber. There was no restless tossing and turning, and no panicky midnight terrors jolting him awake. When the next morning rolled around, Xie Yaqian woke up looking incredibly flustered and intensely shy, the tips of his ears flushing a bright crimson. I couldn't help but playfully tease him, "Hey, CEO Xie, who was that absolute crybaby weeping like a toddler last night?" He shot a fierce glare right at me, but his usual icy intimidating edge was completely gone, replaced by a hint of pure adorable sulking. "Shut up. You are strictly banned from ever mentioning that after rolling out of bed." I immediately ordered the elite security detail to completely confiscate and lock away every single gold chain in the mansion. From this day forward, I'll secure you with my absolute raw devotion, which is 10 times more unbreakable than any metal lock. As the weeks rapidly blurred past, I fully committed myself to the intense daily grind at the ZA Corporation. Starting from absolute scratch where I couldn't even decipher a basic financial spreadsheet, I shadowed Xie Yaqian step by step, absorbing high-level business strategy like a sponge, and tackling complex corporate operations head-on. My evolution was nothing short of a meteoric rise. Xie Yaqian was the absolute definition of patience whenever he mentored me, and I pushed my limits to unlock maximum focus, wanting nothing more than to shoulder his crushing burdens and elevate his empire, so that he would never have to shoulder the weight of the entire world completely alone again. As for Yuan Tiantian, she ultimately paid the absolute ultimate price for her boundless greed and narcissism, with the massive government bidding project crashing down in total failure. She not only completely failed to secure the crucial capital injection from the Qi family, but also found herself buried under an astronomical mountain of catastrophic debt. Her company's shares were aggressively seized and liquidated, and her tyrannical father, who had always valued cold hard utility above all else, saw that she was officially a completely useless asset. He immediately stripped her of every single corporate right and authority within the firm, shifting his massive backing to push his other heirs directly to the top. Yuan Tiantian was left entirely abandoned and completely isolated, her former high society prestige completely obliterated into dust. Ultimately, she was forced to pack her bags and leave Haishi in absolute humiliation, completely stripped of the power to ever orchestrate toxic drama again. When the news finally reached my ears, I merely offered a calm, casual smirk. Karma is an absolute mirror. She meticulously paved her own path to this disastrous downfall step by step, and she has absolutely nobody else to blame. When Gunyanian dropped by the Xie estate once again, she caught sight of Xie Yaqian and me sitting tightly side by side on the plush sofa. I was attentively peeling a fresh tangerine for him, while he leaned his head heavily against my shoulder reviewing corporate files, exuding the absolute pinnacle of domestic bliss and tranquility. The shock hit her so hard she almost executed a flawless spit take with her hot tea. Holy crap, Chao Chen, you have undergone a literal mind-blowing metamorphosis. Back then, your eyes were permanently locked onto that toxic Yuan Tiantian. But now, your entire universe completely revolves around our precious Yaqian Seiko. Incredible, seriously incredible. It looks like that dense brain of yours has finally unlocked peak enlightenment. Xie Yaqian playfully gave Gunyanian a gentle nudge, though an unsuppressible, radiant smile was dancing across his lips. Oh, stop spouting absolute nonsense. I firmly clasped Xie Yaqian's hand, staring at him with absolute dead seriousness. I was completely blind in the past, but my vision is now crystal clear. I know exactly who is truly worthy of my absolute lifelong devotion. Ding host, stage 1 of the main quest has been flawlessly executed with maximum marks. Your physical health metrics have officially normalized to peak standard values. Stage 2 quest, the ultimate protector of Xie Yaqian, is now officially live. Your mystery reward loot box has been successfully distributed into your inventory. Congratulations, you have unlocked the legendary passive 2 Hearts 1 Mind buff. From this microsecond onward, your emotional frequencies are perfectly synced, ensuring that zero toxic misunderstandings will ever tear you two apart again. As the days seamlessly blurred past in absolute bliss, my physical weight steadily climbed back up to a perfectly healthy athletic baseline. I completely shed that ghastly emaciated skin and bones appearance from before, and my entire aura became intensely vibrant, brimming with raw vitality, radiating the pure unstoppable energy of a man at the absolute top of his game. Simultaneously, the raw emotional bond between Xie Yaqian and me grew intensely profound, evolving naturally from our childhood days as chaotic frenemies, into becoming the absolute most indispensable partners in each other's lives. Under our synergistic corporate co-management, the CA Corporation achieved an unprecedented meteoric era of explosive growth, relentlessly expanding its market dominance across the board, until it solidified its status as the absolute #1 elite conglomerate in Haishi. The highly skeptical board directors who once openly doubted Xie Yaqian were now showering me with endless non-stop praise. One beautiful weekend afternoon, I took Xie Yaqian out for a nostalgic date, returning right back to our old university campus grounds, strolling leisurely along the familiar campus paths, watching the vibrant streams of energetic students walking past us. It felt as if we had been instantly transported back to when we were exactly 20. I ground to a sudden deliberate halt, gazing intently into Xie Yaqian's eyes before smoothly dropping down onto one knee, retrieving a dazzling custom-cut diamond ring from my coat pocket. I personally bought this using the very first massive bonus I earned by my own merit. Xie Yaqian, when we were 20 and I severely twisted my ankle, you selflessly supported me as we walked down this exact same path. Now that I am 26 years old, I want nothing more than to tightly lock fingers with you and walk through the rest of our literal lives together. Our previous marriage was driven by petty spite, fueled by trauma and locked in by a chaotic accident. But right now, the reason I want to officially marry you is simply because I'm completely, utterly in love with you. So will you officially do me the absolute honor of marrying me? Xie Yaqian's beautiful eyes immediately grew completely misty, and he nodded his head with absolute intense force, his voice breaking with raw emotion as he whispered, "Yes, 1,000 times yes." I smoothly slid the brilliant diamond ring onto his bare ring finger, standing back up to pull him into a crushing, passionate embrace. From this moment on, we are officially done playing childhood rivals. There is only me and my gorgeous wife, completely locked in for life, refusing to ever let go, growing old together until our hair turns silver. Ding host, the ultimate main quest has been successfully and flawlessly cleared. The grand jackpot reward till death do us part is now permanently activated. Wishing you and Xie Yaqian a lifetime of absolute, unadulterated bliss, flawless health, and smooth sailing until the very end. I wrap my arms tighter around the person resting securely in my chest, My soul filled with the absolute pinnacle of serenity and profound satisfaction. Once upon a time, I genuinely believed I was just a brainless puppet trapped inside a toxic scripted webtoon, whose tragic destiny had already been set in stone by the author, doomed to march straight into an absolute heartbreaking catastrophe. But standing here right now, I know with absolute certainty that as long as you stubbornly guard your true character and fiercely cherish genuine raw affection, you can absolutely break free from every single toxic shackle and live life entirely on your own terms. Xie had utilized 6 long years of obsessive devotion and protection just to successfully wait out the storm and welcome back the real me. And in return, I will leverage the absolute entirety of my lifelong tenderness and companionship to completely repay him for every single shred of past trauma and agonizing waiting. As the dead of night officially rolled in and the world fell completely silent, I gazed down intently at the peacefully sleeping Xie right beside me and softly pressed a gentle kiss against his forehead. Being able to lock you down as my official partner in this lifetime is hands down the absolute greatest jackpot I Chao Chen have ever won. From this microsecond until the very end of time, the raging blinding winter blizzards will be you. The quiet beautifully mundane days will be you. The darkest times of absolute poverty will be you. The pinnacle of golden glamorous luxury will be you. Every single ounce of tenderness in the deep corners of my soul will be you. And everywhere my eyes ever gaze for the rest of my life will always be you.